Chapter 135. No matter what, Tang Yuan was still the young master of the Tang family, the #1 family in town. What sort of situation had he not seen before? He was able to toy with countless women in the town, he was able to make the bandits make way for him, he was able to make the people in the prison open the door for him, and he was even able to drink and chat merrily with the son of the town guard. In fact, there was nothing in Guanxi town that Tang Yuan couldn't do. And now, in front of his 4 subordinates, he was actually threatened by a teenage child. How could Tang Yuan tolerate this? Immediately, Tang Yuan angrily pushed away the 4 guards in front of him. "You brat!" Tang Yuan wanted to rush up and slap Li Zongjio. However, Li Zongjio directly stepped forward and grabbed Tang Yuan's hair. But Tang Yuan fell to the ground. Li Zongjio's sudden attack was so fast that the guards didn't even have time to react. They saw Li Zongjio finish his attack. "What are you doing?" With an angry roar, one of them wanted to snatch Tang Yuan back. After all, this was their duty. However, Li Gui and the others had already made their move. Although the Li family guards were seriously injured, their combat experience had increased by a significant amount. Their bloodthirstiness had also made these people feel a deep sense of dread. Li Zongjio directly grabbed Tang Yuan's hair and dragged him out. Li Gui and the other Li family's guards blocked the 4 black-clothed guards and were still fighting among them. The scene was a chaotic scene. Shen Xinxiao led the Shen family's people and quickly followed Li Zongjio's footsteps. During this process, Tang Yuan could only watch helplessly as the 4 guards she had brought with her fell to the ground one after another. Let me go, let me go." He seemed to have realized something. Tang Yuan woke up. His men had been killed by Li Zongjio. Who else could save him? Not many people knew that he had secretly come to the town guard's residence tonight. The only people who knew were already killed by the Li family's guards. These people even dared to kill the guards of the town guard's residence. If they killed him, it would only be one more life. Amidst the chaos, Tang Yuan had already understood her situation. Under such circumstances, there was no longer any hope. Why did the situation become like this? At this moment, Tang Yuan also wondered why he had done such a stupid thing and said such a stupid thing. Li Zongjio dragged Tang Yuan all the way to a flagpole. As an institution under the dynasty, there would always be a flagpole with the dynasty's holy flame flag. Li Zongjio pulled the flagpole out. When Tang Yuan saw that Li Zongjio had let go of her to fiddle with the flagpole, she scrambled to run away. Murder, murder. After running for a distance, Tang Yuan saw that Li Zongjio did not chase after him. He heaved a sigh of relief. Just as he was about to curse Li Zongjio, he saw the flagpole in Li Zongjio's hands stabbing towards him. "What? Puchi!" The tip of the bamboo pole was sharp. It easily pierced through Tang Yuan's stomach and came out from the back of his neck. It was dyed red by the Xingyan dynasty's flag. Ah! Ouch, ouch, ouch. At this moment, Tang Yuan felt excruciating pain all over her body. Even the slightest breath she took was excruciatingly painful. The flagpole pierced through Tang Yuan's body, but it did not hurt any of his organs. In other words, even if the bamboo pole was pulled away, it would only be a superficial wound. He was in a trance. Tang Yuan looked at the things in front of her gradually getting farther and farther away from her. Suddenly, she appeared at the top of Guanxi town. Looking down from the top of Guanxi town, she saw that she was strung up by the flagpole and directly lifted into the sky. She was at least 10 meters above the ground. "What are you trying to do? Put me down." Li Zongjio raised his head and looked at his masterpiece. Stringing people up was a method that Li Zongjio often used. The flagpole pierced through the body and did not hurt the internal organs. The bleeding rate was also relatively slow. At present, he could at least last 2 to 3 days before he died. Of course, during this process, there was no lack of elixirs. Li Zongjio flicked his finger. Suddenly, with a whoosh, some elixir powder turned into a ray of light and smashed into Tang Yuan's body. It exploded, and the elixir powder spread out. For ordinary people, it had no effect. However, for some ants and other animals that liked sweets, this was something that had a fatal attraction. To them, this thing was simply a treasure bestowed by the heavens. The smell was enough to spread to the range of 100 meters. On the other hand, all the ants within 100 meters would gather here. It directly invaded Tang Yuan's wound. "What are you trying to do? What did you sprinkle on me?" While he was shouting, Li Zongjio threw another stone and hit one of Tang Yuan's acupoints. Since then, she had lost control of her body below her neck. Even her fingers could not move. Tang Yuan fell into a state of extreme panic when she felt such a sensation on her body. "Enjoy it." Li Zongjio looked at Tang Yuan, who was hanging high on the flagpole. Then he turned and left. Those ants would crawl along the flagpole from one side of the wound to the other side of the wound. This feeling of being pierced by thousands of ants, anyone would choose to kneel down and beg for mercy. If he had the ability to fight, he believed that the wound on his body would definitely fester. Even if an ant burrowed into his body, the unbearable itch would be magnified dozens or even hundreds of times. "Brat, put me down quickly. Otherwise, I will not forgive you." Tang Yuan roared. Now, only his throat could make a sound, but Li Zongjio turned a deaf ear. Instead, he came in front of a group of Shen family members who were still in a state of shock and disbelief. While Shen Chuanqiu was still in the prison, he had already made up his mind. He had to get rid of all these people. The guardian residents had gone too far. If they continued to compromise, their Shen family would be finished. Tonight, they were almost finished. Hence, they had to show their strength and retaliate. That was the only way. Only then could he ensure that his family would not decline. Gu Man led a few guards from the Li family to search the protector's estate. However, apart from capturing a few guards who were hiding, they didn't find the Lord Protector's figure. Immediately, he hurried to Li Zongjio's side to report. "Stay in the defender's residence and wait for the defender to return." Chapter 136. Li Zongjio said. It had to be said that this was an extremely bold and crazy idea. The people of the Shen family had escaped with great difficulty, and now there was no place for them to go in Guanxi town. The only way was to leave Guanxi town as soon as possible. However, if that was the case, the Shen family would also decline. After all, the Shen family was based in Guanxi town. If the Shen family were to move, and not just move, but flee, they would leave Guanxi town. Coupled with the court's arrest warrant, all of them would become fugitives. No one could bear such a blow. That's right. I want to know what Lu Jianzhong is capable of. Damn that fatty. Lu Jianzhong. That was the name of the garrison. Of course, Lu Jianzhong was young, but he came to Guanxi town early to make a fortune. Although it was a small place, Lu Jianzhong's identity was not simple. To be able to take up the position of a guard at the age of 30, if he wasn't very capable, then he must have a very strong background. Putting aside Lu Jianzhong's background, his position as a garrison guard was an official of the Saint Flame Empire. If anything were to happen to him, he would have the support of the Saint Flame Empire. In this small Guanxi town, Lu Jianzhong could do whatever he wanted. As for the so-called supervision department, he just needed to bribe them and there would be no problem. "Father, don't worry. The most important thing is to get out of here." Shen Xinqiao thought for a while. The Li family had only sent a dozen or so guards, and in addition to the previous battle, they had already suffered great losses. Their current strength might not be able to defeat the garrison. Moreover, there were many experts hiding around Lu Jianzhong. Considering the overall situation, Shen Xinqiao knew that they would be trapped if they stayed to confront them. They would not be able to get out of Guanxi town. Sister is right. If we don't leave, we will all die here. Shen Nanxiao said. Even if everyone left this place together, the survival rate might not be very high. Maybe most of them would die on the way. But once they entered the mountain, it would be the Shen's hunter's world. As for what happened after that, he would think about it later. Whether it was reputation or not, he had to survive first. You youngsters should leave. I'm old and can't walk anymore. Shen Chuanqiu said. His old eyes were filled with endless depth as he looked at the grown-up children around him. Li Zongjio had also come. As a member of the grandson generation, Li Zongjio's performance this time had also surprised Shen Chuanqiu. Shen Chuanqiu couldn't believe it. Zongjio, you are still young. The world is dangerous. Quickly take your people and leave. Your guards are still young. Don't sacrifice them in vain. Shen Chuanqiu wanted to persuade Li Zongjio and the others to leave first. Li Zongjio shook his head. Grandpa, Mom, don't worry. As long as I, Li Zongjio, am here, that puny Guanxi town won't be able to do anything to us. Not only will we not have to leave, I'll take back everything we've lost. Take back what was lost. This was what old Master Shen Chuanqiu wanted. However, in this world, without strength, connections, and background, how could you possibly get back the things that were stolen from you? Those inspirational articles and stories were naturally used to deceive people. There were only a few people who could really turn the tide in their lives. Zongjio, is what you said true? Shen Nanxiao couldn't believe his eyes. This little nephew of his could actually say something so contagious. Shen Xinxiao, who was beside him, was also carefully sizing up Li Zongjio. He was extremely amazed by the changes in Li Zongjio's body. What exactly happened to Li Zongjio? Could it be that the Snow Elixir sect had the ability to transform people? They could actually train the introverted Li Zongjio to become like this. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed that Li Zongjio was his son. At this moment, Li Gui tactfully came to Shen Xinxiao's side and whispered a few words in his ear. When he heard what Li Gui said, his eyes widened and his mouth dropped open in shock. The more he looked at Li Zongjio, the more he couldn't believe it. Most of the people from the Shen family were also arranged to rest in the rooms of the guardian residence. The injured guards of the Li family were also bandaged. Fortunately, they had brought a lot of elixirs with them. After taking the elixirs, their injuries were healed. It was already the latter half of the night. The entire guardian residence was already under Li Zongjio's control. It didn't have to be a lot of people. Most of the armed forces of the defenders' residence had already been wiped out when they attacked. Li Zongjio didn't show any mercy when he made a move. The black wind was biting cold. Tang Yuan, who was hanging high on the flagpole, was howling in pain. He wanted to scream in the direction of his family, but he didn't have the strength to do so. At this moment, Tang Yuan also felt that there was something wriggling in his body. When these things entered his body, he felt an unbearable itch. He wanted to stretch out his hands to scratch his wounds, but he realized that his hands couldn't move at all. Oh my God, let me die. Kill me, kill me. This kind of torture was something that even those with strong willpower couldn't withstand. Moreover, this was a rich second generation who only knew how to eat, drink, and play. His fate was obvious. However, when Tang Yuan cried for help from above, the people from the Shen family who were about to go to sleep could only feel good in their hearts. Such a guy, let him continue to suffer. Even if Tang Yuan wanted to kill himself, it would be difficult. Everyone is in a small building on the east side, and they are protected by 6 guards. Li Gui reported to Li Zongjio. Some of the unimportant people were naturally gathered together. The entire building was also protected. Don't underestimate the defensive power of these 6 guards. Even if hundreds of people attacked at the same time, these 6 guards would be able to make sufficient preparations. As for Li Zongjio and the others, they were in the main hall of the Guardian Mansion. Li Zongjio was hungry, so he asked the people in the Guardian residence to cook some dishes and serve them. He really treated the Guardian residence as his own home. He was even more free than his own home. This feeling of substitution was too fast. Shen Nanxiao and the rest didn't expect that one day they would be living in the Guardian residence. Moreover, they were living in the main hall of the Guardian residence from the prison. At this moment, Willow Lane, Bright Moon Hotel. A large number of soldiers had cleared the streets. Every house was closed, and some people were directly chased out. As the deputy general of the city guards, he had a long sword. He was also equipped with a long sword. He bent over and jogged all the way to the most luxurious private room in the Bright Moon restaurant and gently knocked on the door. The outside had already been cleaned up completely. However, in this room, there was still singing and dancing. Son of a bitch, who is knocking on the door? Get in here. A fiery voice came from inside the room. Hearing this, the deputy general's heart trembled. Although the consequences were severe, the current situation was even more serious. Lord Lu, something bad has happened. Chapter 137. His upper body was naked and he was wearing a pair of ordinary pajama pants. Lu Jianzhong sat in front of the table and listened to the kneeling deputy as he recounted the entire incident. Lu Jianzhong's eyebrows shot up as he listened to the story. Who would have thought that someone would be so arrogant as to kill his military governor on the streets? These thieves are actually so arrogant. Sir Lu, the Tang family will send 100 martial masters to join forces with the city guards to take them down. An old man in his 60s standing beside Lu Jianzhong said with a flushed face. There were also many lipstick marks on his skinny body. If one were to look at him like this, it would be unseemly. However, Lu Jianzhong had yet to take out his clothes. How could Tang Jiushan put them on? It was not strange for Tang Jiushan to be here. The Tang family had colluded with the defender's residence. Today was the day that the entire Shen family would be thrown into jail. Tang Jiushan was naturally happy. He would be even happier if all the members of the Shen family were dead. He had originally thought that this matter would be over. However, it seemed like there were still other waves. Tang Jiushan, who was burning with anxiety, wanted to get rid of these people as soon as possible. Shut up. Go and gather the people from Mang Mountain immediately. Enter the city secretly. Give them 4 hours. Although Lu Jianzhong was greedy, he was not stupid. Such a valiant force had suddenly appeared. The young man in the lead had actually dealt with Ma Yuanshan with a single move. How could such a person be underestimated? Since they were going to be enemies with these people, they would have to be fully prepared. You want to let them enter the city? The deputy was obviously a little surprised. He had never expected that they would actually let these people enter the city. This was already a very dangerous matter. It was difficult to weigh the pros and cons of using these extremely dangerous people to deal with a dangerous situation. What are you waiting for? Lu Jianzhong shouted fiercely. He had never been kind to his subordinates. Furthermore, this was Lu Jianzhong's territory. This was Guanxi town. I didn't expect that there would be so many capable people in my small Guanxi town. Interesting. Interesting. Let me meet you. Lu Jianzhong sneered. He put on his clothes and walked out of the door of the private room. When Lu Jianzhong walked out, another figure appeared behind him. Like a ghost, the figure appeared behind Lu Jianzhong without making a sound. He didn't say anything, nor did he do anything else. He just walked slowly like that. Tang Jiushan, come with me. Don't bring anyone else. I want to see if these people have the guts of a bear or a leopard. Lu Jianzhong waved his hand, telling the Tang clan's old man to follow him. All of you stay here. Guanxi town is my turf. Of my territory is my turf. Do you think that I want to harm you? After Lu Jianzhong ordered Tang Jiushan's guards to retreat, the guards looked at each other in dismay. Who knows what Lu Jianzhong's intention is? If Lu Jianzhong is unhappy, it is not impossible for him to make the Tang family suffer the same fate as the Shen family. Looking at Lu Jianzhong's angry eyes, Tang Jiushan was furious. How could Tang Jiushan not know? He could only apologize to Lu Jianzhong again and again. He was still smiling at Lu Jianzhong. Then he waved his guards to retreat. Lord Lu, what are you talking about? Let's go. The Shen family seems to be rebelling. Ha, is that so? Then they can't escape the death penalty. Let's go. Just like that, the large group of city guards escorted Lu Jianzhong and Tang Jiushan as they headed towards the Guardian Mansion. The guards of the Tang family who were forced to stay behind were also at a loss. Their duty was to protect the old man, but now the old man had been forced to leave by someone else. What should they do? Let's go. Let's follow them. If anything happens, we'll act according to the circumstances. Go. Big brother, I heard that they were going to Mount Mang to invite someone. What is it? Don't ask if you don't know. This night in Guanxi town was destined to be turbulent. A large number of armored soldiers swept through the streets like a torrent of steel. In addition to the initial 500 soldiers, the rest of the garrison forces were mobilized from other places. A total of 800 armored soldiers were here. Is there something floating on the flag? Lu Jianzhong raised his hand and the troops behind him stopped. Something floating? It should be some rubbish wrapped around it. Tang Jiushan was old and could no longer see the thing in the distance. Shoot that thing down. Lu Jianzhong said directly. He was afraid that there would be an ambush. In addition, it was in the middle of the night. He had to shoot that thing down to ensure that nothing would go wrong. The one who was in charge of the troops here was Lu Jianzhong's butler, also known as the lackey. Archers, get ready. Shoot! Lai Fu, who was wearing a blue butler uniform, gave the order. Suddenly, a series of arrows whizzed out. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. Hundreds of arrows were shot directly at that thing like a dense rain of arrows. Good shot. As expected of the city guard's archers. Every shot is accurate. Tang Jiushan applauded when he saw that. He flattered Lu Jianzhong in front of him and hoped that Lu Jianzhong would not make things difficult for him. Now, he still wanted to build a good relationship with Lu Jianzhong. Lu Jianzhong glanced at Tang Jiushan beside him. The reason why he cooperated with Tang Jiushan was to bring down the Shen family. Firstly, it was to prove his strength. Secondly, the Tang family wasn't a force to be reckoned with. Comparatively speaking, the Tang family was easier to control. Therefore, Lu Jianzhong chose to cooperate with the Tang family because the Tang family posed no threat to him. However, after the rain of arrows, the thing on the flag did not move. Instead, because the arrows were stuck on it, the flagpole fell directly towards them. Boom! The flagpole fell 50 meters in front of them. Go! Take that thing down and have a look. He seemed to think that he had won the first battle. At least, he defeated the enemy and dealt a heavy blow to them. However, when the soldiers quickly ran to the front and dragged the thing on the ground to Lu Jianzhong, Tang Jiushan's smile suddenly froze on the spot when he saw this scene. The person in front of him was shot to pieces. Even if his parents were in front of him, they would definitely not recognize him. However, Tang Jiushan recognized him at a glance. The person who was shot into a sieve was really his precious son. It was unknown what was going on these days. Most people had children when they were old. Usually, those who were successful in their careers usually had children when they were old. Therefore, they took extra care of their children. Tang Yuan treasured him to death. Everything was done according to his wishes. In Guanxi town, there was almost no one who could stop Tang Yuan. Even if something happened, the Tang family would take care of it from behind. Now, Tang Yuan was originally not dead, but now he was shot to such a state. His fate made people sigh. This, what kind of thing is this? Do you know it? Lu Jianzhong went up and gave it a kick. When Lu Jianzhong kicked the fat lump of rotten meat, a piece of meat was directly kicked away. Immediately, a group of pitch-black ants crawled out from the stomach and scattered in all directions. This gave Lu Jianzhong a fright. Fuck, what are these things? Tang Jiushan saw this scene and did not dare to admit it. He repeatedly said, I don't know, I don't know. Chapter 138. Throw this pile of rotten flesh out and feed it to the dogs. Lu Jianzhong said directly. His subordinates immediately stepped forward and dragged Tang Yuan's corpse away before throwing it into the garbage. Tang Jiushan was extremely anxious. However, Tang Yuan was already dead. If they couldn't get through this storm tonight, the Tang family would probably be finished. In comparison, Tang Jiushan liked Tang Yuan more. He couldn't allow anything to happen to Tang Yuan. Otherwise, he would be in deep trouble. Therefore, he didn't dare admit that he knew Tang Yuan in front of Lu Jianzhong. In fact, Lu Jianzhong really didn't know Tang Yuan. Furthermore, Lu Jianzhong couldn't be bothered to look at Tang Yuan's disgusting appearance after being shot. How dare they attack the defender's residence? They are openly defying the dynasty. Charge in. When they arrived at the defender's residence, they saw the two guards lying on the ground. They had been left behind by Li Zongjiu and the others when they had attacked. Boom! Boom! The door was smashed open. However, there wasn't the slightest sound in the defender's residence. Instead, the long passageway that led to the meeting hall was filled with corpses on both sides of the passageway. These were all the guards of the defender's residence. They had all lost their lives. The blood on the ground gathered and flowed onto the floor. In the eyes of ordinary people, such a horrifying and bloody scene was enough to shock them to the core. Lu Jianzhong realized that this matter wasn't simple. However, when he thought about the fact that he was the defender's residence of Guanxi Town and had the backing of an expert from his family, he felt that there was nothing to worry about. Not to mention Guanxi Town, even within 100 miles of Guanxi Town, there wouldn't be anyone more powerful than the person behind him. Now that his defender's residence had been invaded, how could such a thing happen so casually? Lu Jianzhong's reputation would be ruined in Guanxi Town in the future. How bold of you to wait for me here. Send a group of people to search the dungeon and see if there are any fish that escaped the net. Also, with so many people, it's impossible for them to be gathered in the meeting hall. Find these people and bring them out. At the same time, seal off all the main roads of the House of Guardians. When the people from Mang Mountain arrive, we'll kill our way in. There's no need to say anything. Lu Jianzhong acted swiftly and decisively. His subordinates immediately split into 3 groups. In the end, there were only a dozen people who followed Lu Jianzhong into the meeting hall. Tang Jiushan, that shadow-like bodyguard, and some of Lu Jianzhong's personal bodyguards, were more trustworthy. The dozen or so people walked into the meeting hall. Originally, they thought that they would see a scene of 2 armies facing off against each other after entering the house. However, before they even entered the house, they could already smell a fragrance. When they really walked in, they were immediately shocked by the scene before their eyes. These people actually, he was actually in the House of Guardians. Swaggering while eating hot pot. The boiling aroma filled the air above the eaves and lingered in the entire house. More than a dozen people surrounded the hot pot, eating heartily. There were dozens of corpses lying outside, but the people inside were actually eating hot pot so happily. When they saw Lu Jianzhong and the rest enter, everyone couldn't help but put down their chopsticks. Shen Chuanqiu's gaze was like a pair of eagle claws, directly grabbing Tang Jiushan's body. Tang Jiushan was the person who caused the Shen family to fall into such a miserable state. He was the main culprit. This old fart was actually so insidious. Today, he had almost died. When enemies meet, their eyes would be exceptionally red. Tang Jiushan, you're living quite comfortably as a lackey, Shen Chuanqiu said in a deep voice. The rest of the people also put down their bowls and chopsticks, wiping their mouths. Shen Chuanqiu, as a fugitive, you killed the guards of the House of Guardians. I'm afraid you'll be in prison for the rest of your life. Tang Jiushan also snorted coldly. He was not afraid of Shen Chuanqiu at all. Both of them were originally at the same level. Now that Shen Chuanqiu had become a prisoner, their positions had changed drastically. Tang Jiushan directly fired at Shen Chuanqiu. Tang Jiushan, do you know that escaping from prison is a crime punishable by death? Lu Jianzhong stood up with his hands behind his back. Looking at the faces of the Shen family in front of him, most of them were very familiar. However, Lu Jianzhong dared to pat his chest and say that he had never seen this young man before. The aura of the young man in front of him was extremely unfamiliar. Even with Lu Jianzhong's strength, there was no way for him to determine Li Zongjiu's strength. This meant that Li Zongjiu either had no Yuan Qi cultivation or was a hidden expert. If that was the case, Lu Jianzhong had to be careful when dealing with Li Zongjiu. However, at such a young age, even if he had any ability, it would only be within a certain range. He might not be able to cause any waves. You're the House of Guardians? Li Zongjiu said in front of everyone. Then he wiped off the oil stains on his hands. He casually moved a chair to the front and sat down with a swagger. He looked at Lu Jianzhong in front of him as if Lu Jianzhong was the prisoner and Li Zongjiu's status was higher. Interesting, you actually dare to act ruthlessly in front of me. Lu Jianzhong's small eyes narrowed as he looked at Li Zongjiu in front of him. Soon, someone moved a chair for Lu Jianzhong to sit down. The distance between the two of them was less than 10 meters. You should be from Luoxia City's Li family, right? You're not afraid at such a young age. However, even if your Luoxia City's Li family came here today, the outcome would be the same. All of you would become wanted criminals. Lu Jianzhong suddenly shouted in a stern voice. As soon as these words came out, the Shen family behind him became agitated. Why are we wanted? We're innocent, Li Zongjiu waved his hand, indicating for the people behind him to quiet down. Shen Xinxiao looked at his son sitting in front of him. At this moment, he felt as if he was being protected. It was as if the area behind Li Zongjiao was absolutely safe and no one could hurt them. When this feeling appeared, it made Shen Xinxiao's heart tremble slightly. His son had grown up. Although he didn't know what happened to Li Zongjiao, Li Gui had briefly explained the situation. Shen Xinxiao knew that his son was now able to shoulder the responsibility and was no longer a child. "You're his housekeeper, right?" Li Zongjiao pointed at the person beside Lu Jianzhong. This person had been nodding and bowing to Lu Jianzhong ever since he came in. He was also the one who moved the chair for Lu Jianzhong just now. When he was called out by Li Zongjiao, he was a little surprised. Why was he involved in the fight between these big shots? "From now on, you'll be the garrison of Guanxi town." When Li Zongjiao saw that he didn't deny it, he directly said, "Directly appoint the garrison?" Chapter 139. Not only did Li Zongjiao appoint the town guard without authorization, but he also did it in front of the current town guard. Most importantly, Li Zongjiao's current status was that of a prison breaker. Such a crime was punishable by death. Lu Jianzhong found it hilarious that such a death row criminal was giving orders in front of him as though he was passing judgment on the world. He had seen many interesting things in his long tenure as town guard, but this was the first time he saw someone as self-righteous as Li Zongjiao. Tang Jiushan, who was standing beside Li Zongjiao, laughed heartily when he heard what Li Zongjiao said. He took the opportunity to mock Li Zongjiao. In his opinion, Li Zongjiao was too ignorant. "Shen Chuanqiu, where did you find him? No matter how useless your Shen family is, there's no need to find a child to make a scene." "Ha!" Tang Jiushan said. However, as soon as he finished speaking, he saw Li Zongjiao looking at him. Tang Jiushan couldn't help but feel a sense of guilt. "So it's a fool. Huh, take them down." Lu Jianzhong sneered. His fat body was about to take a step back when he suddenly saw Li Zongjiao's figure appear in front of him. "What?" Lu Jianzhong, who had just stood up, was so frightened that he fell backward. Seeing that Li Zongjiao had actually made a move, the black-robed elder behind Lu Jianzhong immediately let out a cold snort. This cold snort was like 1,000 layers of turbulent waves that directly swept towards Li Zongjiao and the others. Boom! The surrounding air seemed to have turned into thousands of sharp swords in an instant, piercing towards Shen Chuanqiu and the others. The first to bear the brunt was Li Zongjiao. Li Zongjiao did not release the slightest bit of spiritual power. He just condensed his own mental strength into a white chess piece. It flew straight ahead. Boom! There seemed to be a divine might gathering on the white chess piece as it spread out in all directions in front of him. Boom! Power surged. Lu Jianzhong's stool was unable to withstand the pressure of the void and shattered with a loud bang. The next moment, Lu Jianzhong fell to the ground. However, the most shocked person was the black-robed old man standing behind him. In the blink of an eye, Li Zongjiao's mental energy swept over. Boom! The black-robed old man couldn't help but take 2 steps back. However, on the surface, he appeared to be unharmed. However, the black-robed old man's mysteriousness and strength were obvious to all. However, Li Zongjiao had been forced to take 2 steps back. Furthermore, it seemed like he had done nothing, yet he was able to force Li Zongjiao back. This scene made everyone even more surprised by Li Zongjiao. Shen Chunqiu was shocked. Tang Jiushan, who was standing at the side, immediately shut his mouth. Could it be that these people could not defeat Li Zongjiao? If they really couldn't defeat Li Zongjiao, then wouldn't the matter of him mocking Li Zongjiao just now be part of Li Zongjiao's scheme? However, it was a pity that he didn't bring his guards. Tang Jiushan could only bluff on the surface, but in reality he didn't have any confidence at all. If they really fought, then Tang Jiushan probably couldn't even defeat Shen Chuanqiu. After all, in this small village, some rich people didn't even bother to cultivate. Most of the time, they just let their subordinates do the work. If I have the money to hire people to fight, then why should I work so hard to cultivate? Tang Jiushan couldn't help but take a few steps to the side. Haha, I didn't expect you to be a mental strength master. I have tortured and killed countless geniuses, but I have never killed a mental strength master before. The black-robed old man took 2 steps back, then let out a shrill laugh. Under such circumstances, the black-robed old man's gaze turned sharp. He had tortured and killed countless geniuses. Could it be that this old man had some weird fetish? Just listening to him gave people a terrifying feeling. Li Zongjio couldn't help but laugh when he heard this. How could he compare the number of people killed with the great evil lord? I'm afraid that all the people you've met in your life wouldn't be enough to kill Li Zongjio. You look like you want to eat hot pot. I'll put your head in the hot pot later and let you eat to your heart's content. Li Zongjio said indifferently. You have a sharp tongue. That black tornado poison palm. The old man let out a low roar. Following the surge of Yuan power, the robe on his body directly melted away. As the old man circulated his Yuan energy, he made people feel a thunderous black wind rush into their hearts. Boom! The old man's palms turned pitch black, and even the air felt like it was filled with poisonous gas. He slammed his palm towards Li Zongjio. Not good, that's the black poison old man. Shen Chuanxiu had been staring at the old man all this time. The old man had been in Guanxi town for a long time, but because he rarely showed himself, his identity had never been discovered. However, Shen Chuanxiu and the others were extremely curious about the black poison old man's identity. Now that he saw the old man attack, he was shocked to reveal the old man's identity. The black poison old man? Isn't that the leader of the 5 Poison Gang? Shen Nanxiao exclaimed in surprise. The 5 Poison Gang could be said to have committed all kinds of evil, and had even captured living people to refine poison. This caused the surrounding area to be extremely wary of the 5 Poison Gang. It was a good thing that the dynasty came forward and joined forces with the defenders of several towns to suppress the 5 Poison Gang. There was even a power from a 3rd-grade city that attacked together and destroyed the 5 Poison Gang. However, the leader of the 5 Poison Gang, the black poison old man, had actually appeared in front of them today. This meant that there was something fishy about the incident that day. In order to eliminate the 5 Poison Gang, it was said that they had applied for a lot of funds from the dynasty. Now that the funds had been approved, the 5 Poison Gang was still active in the area. That bastard, he actually exposed his identity. Lu Jianzhong was lying on the ground. When he saw that the black poison old man had exposed his identity, he cursed in his heart. However, it didn't matter. If the black poison old man attacked, only death would await these people. Since they wouldn't be able to live, there was nothing to worry about. Today, he would go on a killing spree in the Guardian Mansion. The black poison whirlwind palm struck out. Li Zongjio could indeed feel the terrifying power emanating from the black poison palm. This person's strength had already reached the Yuan general level. However, if one were to talk about using poison, the black poison old man had truly found the wrong opponent. Using poison? Li Zongjio immediately chuckled. Before his smile had even faded, Li Zongjio had already raised his palm, directly colliding with the black poison whirlwind palm. Boom! Put. As the 2 palms collided, wind and clouds rose as auras crazily erupted between the 2. The black poison old man stared at Li Zongjio in shock. If an ordinary person's palm came into contact with his poison, that person would have long turned into a pool of blood. However, Li Zongjio's palm did not even cause the slightest ripple when it collided with his. Moreover, the black poison old man could clearly sense that his power had no way of invading Li Zongjio's body. It was as if there was an iron wall blocking his way. This prevented the black poison old man's power from invading Li Zongjio's body. Let's see how long you can last. The black poison old man's voice was stern. A cold light rose from the corners of Li Zongjio's mouth. Take a look at yourself first. As his voice faded, the Yuan power within the black poison old man's body frantically gushed towards Li Zongjio's body. This was not the result of the black poison old man taking the initiative to attack. Instead, it was a result of Li Zongjio forcibly absorbing the black poison old man's power. Chapter 140. The 5 Poison Yuan power in my body, not good. Old man Black Poison had initially thought that Li Zongjio was simply courting death. Given his 5 Poison Yuan power, even an ordinary Yuan general would find it difficult to resist if it were to stick to his outer body. If it were to invade his body, Even an expert several levels higher than himself would not be able to withstand it. They would even have the opportunity to kill him. The 5 poison yuan power in Old Man Black Poison's body swiftly poured into Li Zongjiu's body at this moment. Old Man Black Poison gradually discovered that there seemed to be an endless space within Li Zongjiu's body that was rapidly absorbing his energy, causing his body to feel incomparably empty. Old Man Black Poison gradually began to panic. The yuan power in his body was no longer under his control. The two were deadlocked in place as their palms met. From an outsider's point of view, it seemed to be a contest of yuan power. Well done. Destroy him and I'll give you 500,000 gold coins. Lu Jianzhong was actually cheering from behind. When Old Man Black Poison heard this, he wanted nothing more than to turn around and slap Lu Jianzhong's face. Can't you see that I'm going all out and am at a disadvantage? What are you planning to do by saying, well done now? How is this possible? Old Man Black Poison's heart was shaken, but he could not panic at this moment. He needed to calm down in order to deal with this troublesome opponent before him. Hence, Old Man Black Poison was desperately circulating his Yuan Sutra as he pondered. Fine. Since you want to devour my energy, I'll fight you to the end. In Old Man Black Poison's opinion, Li Zongjiu must have relied on his powerful mental energy or some secret weapon to absorb his poison. However, once the poison accumulated to a certain level, Li Zongjiu would definitely not be able to hold on. When that time came, he would naturally collapse. When he thought of this, Old Man Black Poison's heart naturally hardened. He retrieved a porcelain bottle from his bosom and poured something into his mouth. What he ate was the 5 poisons pill that Old Man Black Poison had specially refined for his poison arts. If he were to consume a single pill, he would be able to unleash his poison arts within a minute. Boom! Old Man Black Poison's aura suddenly erupted. It was as if a huge vortex had engulfed Li Zongjiu's body. This terrifying scene was simply shocking to ordinary people. My little grandson will be fine, right? When Shen Chunqiu saw this, he started to worry. The other party was the leader of the 5 poison gang, Old Man Black Poison. These people were all vicious and merciless. They had at least hundreds of lives on their backs. Every single one of them had committed a heinous crime. This damned sinner had to be dealt with. Who knew that he would appear in front of them and even fight with his grandson? Nothing will happen. I have faith in Zongjiu. At this moment, Shen Xinxiao's heart was filled with worry. It would be a lie if he said that he wasn't worried. His fingernails were almost embedded into his palms as he clenched his fists tightly. He stared fixedly at Li Zongjiu's condition. If this arrogant and ugly old man in front of him dared to hit her precious son, Shen Xinxiao would risk her life to save Li Zongjiu. At this moment, Shen Xinxiao could only cheer for Li Zongjiu in his heart. Li Zongjiu felt the other party's auras suddenly surge. At this moment, he also fixed his gaze and gradually became serious. This was because the aura produced by the other party at this moment was enough to make Li Zongjiu retreat. White Dragon Origin Spirit. Li Zongjiu summoned the White Dragon Origin Spirit. It attached itself to his body in a state of nothingness to help Li Zongjiu. His mental strength also instantly increased. The other party clearly felt that Li Zongjiu's mental strength had become stronger again. He immediately let out a low roar. I'll fight it out with you. The Black Poison old man kept trying to retract his yuan power. Li Zongjiu's devouring had already touched the Black Poison old man's origin. If this continued, the Black Poison old man would probably collapse. If you want your power, then I'll return it all to you. Li Zongjiu sneered. The Black Poison old man didn't understand at first, but in the next moment, Li Zongjiu crazily rushed all the power into the Black Poison old man's body. The power that had been absorbed previously was all controlled by Li Zongjiu's mental strength. Now, Li Zongjiu directly spat out this power again. Boom! A terrifying and turbulent power burst out. It directly whizzed forward. The Black Poison old man's hands were originally somewhat red, but when Li Zongjiu transferred the power back into the Black Poison old man's body, it directly caused a terrifying change in the Black Poison old man's body. The blood in the Black Poison old man's body seemed to be rapidly draining away. Not good. The black poison old man was instantly overwhelmed by fear and hurriedly withdrew his hands. But when the black poison old man withdrew his hands and released them, the terrifying power of the 5 poisons had already exploded his acupuncture points. In this kind of forceful competition of yuan power, if one party wanted to forcefully withdraw, they would have to bear the effects of the exploding acupuncture points. The black poison old man's speed was relatively fast. When the power rushed to his hands, it had already been completely withdrawn. Therefore, the power of the 5 poisons only exploded on the surface of the black poison old man's body. If it had rushed into his body, it would have directly opened a hole in his chest. One could imagine how terrifying it would have been. Bang, bang. 2 of his arms were blown off. The black poison old man retreated several steps, instantly kneeling on the ground. Looking at his 2 broken arms, he was dumbfounded. He didn't dare to believe that with his cultivation, there would be a day when he would leave his broken arms here. How could this be? Who exactly was this young man? How could he possess such power? Even the black poison old man had never expected this. What was even more unexpected was Lu Jianzhong and the rest. In the competition between the black poison old man and Li Zongjio, it was naturally clear who would win. It couldn't be that the black poison old man had blown off his arms, but Li Zongjio had actually suffered extremely serious internal injuries. Everyone present was in an uproar. The black poison old man opened his eyes and turned to flee, but Li Zongjio directly rushed over with his stool. The stool smashed the black poison old man to the ground, causing him to feel dizzy. A mouthful of old blood spurted out. The black poison old man had never imagined that there would be a day when he would be smashed to the ground by someone with a stool. This was simply unimaginable. At this moment, both of his arms were already broken. After receiving such a heavy blow, if he didn't flee now, his old life would probably end here. Just as he was about to get up and flee, another stool came crashing down. Bang, bang, bang. In front of everyone, Li Zongjio had used the chair to end Old Man Black Poison's life. Old Man Black Poison's body had been smashed to smithereens. Even if his own son came, he might not be able to recognize him. Phew, this old man's bones are really tough. After so long, he still hasn't called for help. Li Zongjio seemed to be wiping away his sweat. When the others heard Li Zongjio's words, they all raised their middle fingers in their hearts. The other party had already fainted. How could he call for help? You also want to die for him, right? Li Zongjio pointed at Tang Jiushan and said. Tang Jiushan was instantly stunned. Chapter 141. Dying for him? How could such a thing happen? Tang Jiushan's son had just been killed by this guy. Although he cursed in his heart and wanted to strangle Lu Jianzhong to death, he had to put on a smile on his face. However, Lu Jianzhong was a garrison guard after all. He was an official appointed by the dynasty. If he offended him rashly, he would definitely end up in a very miserable state. At least in Guanxi town, he had to curry favor with Lu Jianzhong. You actually killed him? What do you want to do? Lu Jianzhong looked at Li Zongjio in front of him. This child was so young, but when he attacked, he was so vicious and merciless. Almost every move was fatal. Lu Jianzhong was also very afraid of such methods. He had been a guardian for so long. What kind of people had he not seen? What kind of ruthless people had he not come into contact with? However, it was the first time that he had seen someone as young as Li Zongjio who was so vicious in his attacks. Therefore, Lu Jianzhong was almost scared out of his wits by Li Zongjio's move. Don't worry, I won't kill you. Go and find a jar. The bigger the better. Li Zongjio pointed at the housekeeper, Lai Fu, and said. Lai Fu was a little confused. Why did he bring a jar over at such a critical moment? To make salted vegetables? Lu Jianzhong was still standing. Although he was a little tempted and wanted the position of garrison guard very much, his rationality told him that it was impossible. Therefore, he still stood firmly on Lu Jianzhong's side. What did you say? I advise you to surrender quickly. Otherwise, when the army of the garrison guard arrives, you will die. Lai Fu roared at Li Zongjio. Calculating the time, the garrison guards that were sent out earlier should have found the other members of the Shen family. Why was there no movement until now? Sir, it's not good. The garrison guards have all escaped. They are too powerful. A captain rushed in and shouted loudly when he saw Lu Jianzhong. With Gu Man and Li Gui around, it was more than enough to deal with these few hundred people. After all, these few hundred people were not elite troops that had received training. They were just a group of hooligans. Therefore, with Gu Man and Li Gui working together, in addition to the few Li family guards behind them, they were able to kill these people and make them flee. And most importantly, they had only killed about 20 people. These people ran away in the blink of an eye. This made Li Gui and the others very puzzled. Even if they looked more powerful and fierce, after all, there were only a dozen of them. There were 400 to 500 of them, and only 20 of them died, and all of them escaped. How could such a thing happen? On the other hand, the guards who had escaped felt like 10,000 alpacas were galloping in their hearts. You still have the nerve to be confused. If you want to kill people, then kill them properly. Why did you have to divide them into 5 groups? First, it was 4 slashes that severed the limbs, and the last slash was to sever the head. Everyone died in the same way. Once they were taken down, the Li family's guards would finish each other off. That was why these people ran away. Who would dare to fight with such a person? Normally, they would bully some commoners and collect some protection fees. Now that they had encountered such a situation, who would dare to rush forward? Everyone turned around and ran away. After the first one, there would be a second and a third, and then one after another. In less than 10 minutes, all of them had run away. This captain was quite loyal. He even knew to come and report. Mainly because this captain was quite smart. He thought that if he ran away directly, he would definitely be held accountable. However, if he wanted to continue, he had to stay in a safe place. What kind of place was the safest? Of course, it was the safest place around the Guardian. However, after rushing in, he realized that the surrounding atmosphere was somewhat strange. Why hadn't these people taken down the rebels? Why was there a person lying on the ground? The ground was so dirty. Why weren't they getting up? However, looking at this person's clothes, he vaguely felt that it was somewhat familiar. Fuck, isn't this person the Guardian's personal bodyguard? The one who can directly turn people into a pool of blood. Why is he already down? This captain's inner thoughts were very complicated. When Lu Jianzhong heard this, he angrily slapped him across the face. Fuck you, they ran away. Why didn't you run away? Why did you have to come back and report? Lu Jianzhong's slap directly made the captain a little dizzy. Speaking of which, this captain had some relationship with Lu Jianzhong. This captain's distant cousin was Lu Jianzhong's 14th aunt. But now, this slap directly made the captain's head congested. Shen Chuanqiu and the others breathed a sigh of relief. If these people were all killed and ran away, then the other clansmen would be safe. Otherwise, if the clansmen fell into their hands, this matter would be very troublesome. The situation would be very unfavorable for them. This Li Tianqing is not a good person. He doesn't have any ability. But this Li family's bodyguard is a group of elites. Shen Chuanqiu said. Among so many people present, only Shen Chuanqiu could say this about Li Tianqing. In any case, Li Tianqing was now the head of Luoxia City's Li family. His identity was not simple. But no matter how powerful Li Tianqing was, when he saw Shen Chuanqiu, he had to obediently call him father-in-law. Before Li Zongjiu could say anything, a huge movement came from outside. It seemed like hundreds of people were running quickly. Sir, the people of Mang Mountain are here. A roar came from outside. A large group of people dressed in strange clothes and holding weapons violently pushed away the people in front of them. Get out of my way. Get out of my way. Or you. How dare you block my way? Many of the bodyguards did not have time to dodge and were directly pushed away. A one-eyed man walked in boldly. There were also some people dressed in strange clothes beside him, escorting him. From the looks of it, he was enjoying himself quite a bit. When the gloomy Lu Jianzhong heard that the people of Mang Mountain were here, the smile on his face suddenly bloomed like a flower. He looked at Li Zongjiu with a sneer. You can fight very well, but you met someone who doesn't care about his life. Let's see how long you can be arrogant. Lu Jianzhong's face immediately changed and shouted at Li Zongjio. The person who walked in was a one-eyed man. When Lu Jianzhong saw the one-eyed man, he could not help but be stunned. "Why you here? Where's your boss?" Lu Jianzhong could not help but ask. He looked at the people around him and found that they were not familiar with those people. So he was surprised. What's going on? Could it be that this one-eyed man was directly promoted after plotting a rebellion? Thinking of this, Lu Jianzhong's heart also sucked in a breath of cold air. This one-eyed third brother was also a person who didn't care about his own life. Most importantly, after so many years of cooperation, there might be some kind of weakness that could be used against Lu Jianzhong. If the one-eyed third brother got hold of the key, Lu Jianzhong would be in trouble. This one-eyed man only had strength, but it was impossible for him to have any wisdom. He was also known as a rash person. "Hey, boss is a bit unlucky. This morning he was killed by a kid. Don't you think it's bad luck?" The one-eyed man waved his hand and said, "But it's also good. This guy was killed, so I'll be promoted. Otherwise, I really won't be able to be promoted." Thinking back to the scene this morning, Qiu Feng was supposed to go out for a mission. But this one-eyed man was in a hurry and missed the mission. It was precisely because he didn't catch up that the one-eyed third brother was able to keep his life. He remembered how shocked he was when he saw this scene from afar. Despite being so far away, he was able to kill the boss with just one shot. That was the boss who was wearing armor. He did not even have time to make a move and the boss was directly killed. He did not even have the strength to fight back. It was enough to show how terrifying the person who killed him was. And then, something even more terrifying happened. The few hundred of them had actually been completely annihilated by the dozen or so guards. Until now, these people still had not recovered. How could these people not care about their lives? Thinking about it, they felt scared. At that time, one-eyed third brother had already made up his mind to not chase after his boss when he saw his boss being killed. However, he still remembered the clothes of the guard and the appearance of the young man. This was to remind himself in the future that if he ever saw this person, he must stay as far away as possible from him in the future. Otherwise, his end would be miserable. "Oh right, let me tell you something. You have to be careful these days. If you meet a 17 or 18-year-old kid who looks handsome, smiles with a devilish charm, and has a gaze as sharp as a knife, you have to be careful. This guy can really kill without batting an eyelid. As for Nuonuo, his gaze is just like that." The one-eyed man pointed at Li Zongjio in front of him. Li Zongjio had a faint smile on his face. When he saw Li Zongjio's appearance, the one-eyed man's gaze suddenly froze. Chapter 142. One-eyed third brother repeatedly judged. The young man in front of him was clearly the person he saw this morning on the slope of Mount Mang. This young man had the same indifferent expression and seemed to be in control of the situation around him. There was no worry or fear at all. Even in the face of the huge number of autumn wind troops on Mount Mang, he was still calm and composed. "No matter what, since your boss is dead, I will cooperate with you. In the future, I will leave everything to you. Guanxi Town will provide you with firearms. The share will be the same as before. But before that, you have to help me solve the problem in front of me." Lu Jianzhong took a deep breath. He did not see the panic and fear in the eyes of one-eyed third brother. Lu Jianzhong pulled up his pants and shouted a few times, only to find that the one-eyed third brother didn't move. Lu Jianzhong suddenly became angry. Could it be that the one-eyed third brother wanted to increase his commission? This person was really insatiably greedy. However, as long as he solved the problem of Li Zongjio, other things could be discussed slowly. "You win. The share will be changed from 80% to 70%. You will have 10% more," Lu Jianzhong said in a deep voice. Even at this point, the one-eyed third brother still didn't make any move. Lu Jianzhong suddenly turned around angrily. "How much more do you want, Pa?" One-eyed third brother directly slapped him. In front of so many people, in front of the Deputy General of the Guard Army, he directly slapped Guanxi Town Guard Mansion Lu Jianzhong. This loud slap was enough to wake Lu Jianzhong up. This one-eyed third brother was clearly trying to rebel. "Damn you, you want to drag me down with you. I don't even know you. Hee hee, this little brother, I have only seen him a few times. I don't even know his name. If you have any problems, you can solve them first. We will leave first. One-eyed third brother nodded and bowed to Li Zongjio. This sudden change in attitude immediately startled the extremely nervous Shin Chuanqiu and the rest. Shin Chunqiu lived in Guanxi Town, so he naturally knew about the Mang Mountains bandits and the Guanxi Town's guard mansion. Even some of the dirty things were done by the bandits of Guanxi Town and Mang Mountain. Sometimes, Guanxi Town would directly sell some information to the Mang Mountain bandits, and the loot would be split evenly. Furthermore, the Guanxi Town Guard residents would often sell military equipment to the bandits of Mount Mang. There was a lot of cooperation between them. Guanxi Town's guardian residence was actually a black-hearted guy. These two were originally in cahoots with each other. How could they betray each other now? Just a few seconds ago, they thought they were dead for sure. Looking at their attitude, it seemed like they were very afraid of Li Zongjio. What had Li Zongjio experienced on his way here that made them so afraid of him? One-eyed third brother, are you crazy? Lu Jianzhong couldn't believe that one-eyed third brother actually dared to hit him. I'm crazy, you motherfucker. One-eyed third brother took out his whip and gave Lu Jianzhong a vicious beating. Lu Jianzhong kept rolling on the ground, screaming in pain. Boss, look, I'm really not familiar with them. We rarely come here. Today, we're just passing by for a meal. Go ahead, go ahead. One-eyed third brother said as he stepped back, wanting to leave. However, he saw a group of guards standing at the door. The person leading them was Li Gue. Li Gue had a long saber at his waist, and the guards behind him were like tree stumps on the ground, sneering at the people in front of them. Behind Li Gue and the others, there were even people from Mang Mountain. However, they were able to recognize that they had arrived at a bandit's lair. Therefore, they all hid far away. In this way, there were only one-eyed third brother, a dozen bandits, and the deputy general of the Guardian Army and some guards in the room. Then, there were the people from the Shin family. One-eyed third brother saw the situation and knew that today's matter would not be settled peacefully. He immediately turned around and stared at Li Zongjio. In the end, the one-eyed third brother's eyes hardened. He clenched his teeth, pushed aside the crowd, and arrived in front of Li Zongjio. With a plop sound, he knelt down before Li Zongjio. I, one-eyed third brother, will listen to your orders without any hesitation. One-eyed third brother actually pledged his loyalty to Li Zongjio. What are you still standing there for? Get on your knees. One-eyed third brother roared at his subordinates behind him. These bandits had seen Li Zongjio's strength before. Now that one-eyed third brother had admitted his defeat, they would not dare to act recklessly. When the time came, not only would Li Zongjio kill them, but one-eyed third brother would also not let them go. Therefore, the bandits brought by one-eyed third brother all knelt down. Greetings, boss. Greetings, boss. Li Zongjio saw this scene and could not help but laugh in his heart. Although the one-eyed third brother looked like a fool, he was actually thinking faster than anyone else. Li Zongjio was able to kill their leader with a single strike. It was definitely not luck. If he could kill their leader with luck, he would not have waited until now. Therefore, if a fight really broke out, one-eyed third brother would definitely die. It was not easy for him to become the boss. One-eyed third brother did not want to lose his life so quickly. Your reaction is very fast. Very good. Li Zongjio originally wanted to kill all of them. But after thinking about it, the situation was different from the past. In the past, he was alone and could kill all of them. But now, he had to consider his family. Not only the Li family, but also the Shin family. He had to consider them. As for the rest, Li Zongjio did not care so much. Tonight, a group of bandits robbed the Guardian mansion, killed the Guardian, stole the treasure and escaped. What do you think? Li Zongjio asked one-eyed third brother. The one-eyed third brother was very smart. When he heard Lu Jianzhong's words, he immediately pulled out a dagger from his waist and stabbed it into Lu Jianzhong's stomach. So what if he was the Guardian? They were bandits. What did they not dare to do? They did not dare to throw away their lives. Therefore, when he attacked, he was very vicious and merciless, stabbing Lu Jianzhong several times. Lu Jianzhong suddenly vomited blood and shouted loudly. Ah! You dare to kill me? I am from North Puff City, Lu family. One-eyed third brother, you dare to kill me? Lu Jianzhong suddenly roared. He even announced his family's name. I don't care which city you are from. But it was too late for Lu Jianzhong. Even if he reported his family name, he could not withstand the threat of death. Moreover, North Puff City was a strange place for one-eyed third brother. Chapter 143. Until his death, Lu Jianzhong kept repeating that he was from the northern Puff City's Lu family. They couldn't kill him and so on. However, when he was about to die, the one-eyed third brother had already poked more than a dozen holes in Lu Jianzhong's stomach. Fresh blood continued to flow out and converged into the cracks on the floor. Boss, should we keep these people alive? The one-eyed third brother looked at the remaining forces in the Guardian residence. None of these people dared to move when they were dealing with Lu Jianzhong. When they heard that they were going to deal with themselves, the deputy general was so scared that his face turned pale. With his status, he was at most Ma Yuanshan's right-hand man. Ma Yuanshan was already dead. The Guardian residence was also dead. For the sake of the dynasty's honor, they should kill all these people. This was too fake. No one would believe it even if he said it out loud. Therefore, the deputy general quickly knelt down in front of Li Zongjio. Oh, my lord, please spare my life. I am the deputy general, the deputy commander, Wang Wenbin. I am willing to listen to my lord's orders, even if I have to die. My lord, I can guarantee that the guards will definitely obey my lord's orders. Wang Wenbin immediately surrendered as well. Li Zongjio looked at Lai Fu, who was called out previously. Lai Fu immediately knelt down. It was clear that Lai Fu had absolute control over the situation. If he didn't submit, Lai Fu's only outcome would be death. After that, there would still be someone to replace his position. In that case, he might as well do it himself. Who knows, he might even have a chance to make a perfect comeback. This was an opportunity, but also a crisis in hell. Since you have surrendered, I will leave the matters here to you. Li Zongjio said. As for how to solve it, I don't need to teach you. He looked at Lai Fu and nodded. Don't worry, boss. I know how to deal with these matters. Lai Fu said. Li Zongjio nodded in satisfaction. Tang Jushan saw this scene. It was simply a scene of flipping a book faster than flipping a face. When they flipped, there was no surprise at all. And each one was faster than the other. When Tang Jushan saw this scene, he almost had a heart attack and collapsed just like that. It had only been an hour, but the situation had already undergone such an earth-shaking reversal. Now, so many people stood out and stood on Li Zongjio's side. This was equivalent to standing on the Shen family's side. Shen Chunqiu, you colluded with the bandits to murder the officials of the dynasty. This is tantamount to rebellion. I'm afraid you've already been convicted. Tang Jushan knew that he didn't have long to live. There was no need to worry at all. These people would definitely not let him go. What the Tang family had done had almost ruined the Shen family's future. Now that the Shen family was in power, how could they let this matter go so easily? Shen Chunqiu laughed loudly when he heard this. If it was in the past, Shen Chunqiu wouldn't have minded living his life openly. But now, after seeing these people's faces, he had to admit that he had to admit it. Even so, he had to admit that these bastards like to eat fists. If you treated them gently, it would be very difficult for everyone to get along with each other. After all, in their eyes, if you didn't beat them up, it would mean that you weren't strong enough. You might even be afraid of them. That was why they were so cheap. They had to be beaten up from time to let them know what regret was, what pain was. Only then would they learn. Today, the Tang family was the one who made a move. Tomorrow there might be other families. These battles were endless to begin with. Only real blood and fire could make your enemies wake up and realize that you were not to be trifled with. Hence, Shen Chunqiu walked out with Shen Xinxiao's help. Tang Jushan, I have never taken you seriously for many years. I have tolerated your provocations. But do you really think that I'm afraid of you? Murdering the officials of the dynasty? So what? Whoever dares to touch the people of the Shen family is going against me, Shen Chunqiu. Even if I have to risk my life, I will make him pay the price. Today, you can forget about leaving. Shin Chunqiu said. In Shin Chunqiu's eyes, Tang Jiushan was already a dead man. Even the Tang family had to be destroyed. At the very least, the Tang family would not be able to recover within 100 years. Shin Chunqiu was able to become the head of the Tang family at his age. He wasn't a simple person. If he was so easy to bully, the Shen family would have been destroyed many times over. However, Shin Chunqiu was already old. He had hidden his edge and no longer showed it. Today, he had to spit out the fangs of the Shin family. Shin Chunqiu, you will die a horrible death. Tang Jiushan pointed at Shin Chunqiu and said. But before he could finish his words, the two fingers that were pointing at Tang Jiushan were cut off by the one-eyed third brother. How dare you disrespect our old master? Chop him up and feed him to the dogs. The one-eyed third brother said. He was born a bandit. Now that he had surrendered, he had to show his determination and confidence. This was a rare opportunity to perform well. My grandfather's 70th birthday is in 3 days. Lai Fu, you will arrange it. Send out the visiting cards. Remember clearly whether you are coming or not. Li Zongjio said to the newly appointed head of the guardian residence. Lai Fu nodded immediately. Yes. I promise to complete the task. You bandits can escape from the city now. Li Zongjio said. The one-eyed third brother immediately understood. Then, Wang Wenbin and the one-eyed third brother immediately put on a big show. The guards fought fiercely against the bandits of Mount Mang. In the end, they went through a lot of hardships to drive all the bandits out. However, when they arrived, it was already too late. The guardian Lu Jianzhong was already seriously injured and unconscious. After that, Lai Fu, who temporarily took over the affairs of the guardian residence, was also in charge of all the affairs of the guardian residence in Guanxi Town. The people in Guanxi Town soon learned that the House of Guardians had been killed. However, the state government, which was one level higher than Guanxi Town, did not know what happened in Guanxi Town. Guanxi Town only needed to hand in the financial and tax affairs regularly. Lai Fu was usually in charge of these handover matters, so it was easy for him to handle. He only needed to announce to the public that the guardian Lu was seriously injured. At least for the next 6 months, there was absolutely no risk. As for after 6 months, he could directly announce the death of the guardian residence. Or he could let the bandits rob again. There were many ways. The next day, everyone also found Tang Jiushan, the old master of the Tang family, who was tied in a ponytail and dragged to death on the official road. They all angrily condemned the Mount Mang bandits for being cruel and heartless. Chapter 144. The members of the Shen family, who had been through a night of turmoil, once again returned to the Shen family's courtyard, which had been sealed off. After all, it was just a small town. The surrounding land was very cheap, so the Shen family's area was much larger than the Li family's. However, the number of people was much smaller. The Shen family's residence was sealed and the seal was quickly removed. Everything in the family was still there. Obviously, they had not had time to plunder everything. They were worried that something would happen. Anyway, they were in Guanxi Town, so there was nothing to worry about. However, Li Zongjio's arrival stirred up a storm. The House of Guardians had been completely overshadowed. All of this was due to the respect he had earned through his strength and the convenience that came with it. The moment he struck, all of these people had been wiped out. The next day, the Tang family's people were directly arrested by the Guardian's residence. The reason was tax evasion. Anyone could see that this was a very far-fetched reason. It might not even be valid. How much tax could there be in this small Guanxi town for them to steal? Of course, this was just an excuse. The Guardian's residence was here. If they said that there was a problem, then there was naturally a problem. Shin Xinxiao was not worried about the situation in the town. Instead, he was very concerned about Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio must have suffered a lot in the Wuxue pill sect to be able to have today's ability. He pulled Li Zongjio aside and asked about it. In short, his mood would not calm down so quickly. Li Zongjio also enjoyed the feeling of being with his mother. In the 3,000 years of his previous life, besides cultivation, he enjoyed the loneliness and emptiness of the world. Therefore, Li Zongjio cherished it very much. Even if he had to turn the world upside down, he had to protect the Shen family. Li Gei and the others also handed over the congratulatory gifts from the Li family to Shen Nanxiao. When Shen Nanxiao saw so many precious treasures and precious spiritual herbs, he was extremely surprised. When Shen Nanxiao saw the contents of the last box, his eyes widened in disbelief. These are all second-grade elixirs. There were 24 porcelain bottles in the box. In each bottle, there was a second-grade mid-grade elixir. These elixirs were simply the greatest wealth for the small Guanxi town. It was hard to believe that there were so many elixirs. In short, Shen Nanxiao's view of the Li family had changed. "Oh, thank you. Your family head is too polite. We are all family, there's no need to be so polite," Shen Nanxiao said excitedly. Li Gui, on the other hand, smiled indifferently. At first, when he saw so many second-grade pills, he was also shocked. After all, there was only one second-grade alchemist in the entire Li family. It was almost impossible to refine so many medicinal pills. Even if it was refined, it would probably be kept as a treasure. How could it be taken out so casually? But now, it was different. The Li family's backbone had become so strong. The fog snow pill sex Chang Yaofeng also changed his usual arrogant attitude, as if he wanted to stick his face close to Li family. In fact, he only offered a relatively fair cooperation plan, which directly increased the Li family's harvest by several times. It could be said that this success was too easy. In addition, the Li family's current alchemy hall disciples were also guided by an alchemy master like Wang Jing. Therefore, they knew about the process. Wang Jing's strength was very terrifying. In the future, he would definitely become a sharp arrow in the Li family's alchemy hall. Although his talent was not enough, as long as the method was right, there was still hope for him to become an alchemy master. It could be said that the Li family's future had already stepped into the stage of prosperity. "This is a small gift from our family head. Our family head still has things to do. He will be here in a few days," Li Gui said. Although he was calm on the surface, he was very happy in his heart. He felt that his face was shining brightly. Was this what it felt like to be respected by others when one walked out with strength? The injuries of the Li family's guards gradually recovered with the help of elixirs. Even some of the guards who suffered light injuries that did not affect their movements would wake up early in the morning, after which they would gather together and train. This hard-working spirit was nurtured under Gu Xuanwu's hands. Even when they were out on a mission, they could not relax. As a result, it brought a great impact to the Shen family. Shen Chuanqiu could already tell that the Li family had undergone some changes recently. Just by looking at these people, he could tell that the Li family had changed. In the afternoon, Li Zongjio sat on a rockery in the Shen family's manor. A power was boiling in his body. This was the power of the 5 poisons that he absorbed from the black poison old man. These 5 poisons directly brought a certain hidden danger to Li Zongjio, but Li Zongjio discovered it earlier. However, the danger was not that serious. He just needed to control it a little. However, it also made Li Zongjio realize something. The current him was not the evil lord of his previous life. Therefore, some ordinary poisons were very likely to remain in his body. For example, the power of the 5 poisons. If Li Zongjio did not pay attention to it, it was very likely that the power of the 5 poisons would cause fundamental harm to Li Zongjio. Looks like I need to refine something to increase my body's resistance to poison. It was possible to be immune to poison. However, who knew if this poison was the 101st type? Therefore, Li Zongjio needed to train his body to increase his resistance to poison. Only then could he ignore or even be immune to these poisons. Just as Li Zongjio was trying to force the poison out of his body, a voice suddenly rang out. He found that when the poison entered his meridians, the ancient golden tyrannical body art was circulating freely, and it easily refined the power of the 5 poisons. Seeing this scene, Li Zongjio was shocked. He never thought that the ancient golden tyrannical body art could refine all the poisons. Thus, it could strengthen his body. Li Zongjio could also clearly feel that his body's strength had increased. He was shocked. This ancient golden tyrannical body art can be stimulated with poison? Using poison to train. To an outsider, this sounded like something only a fool would do. However, Li Zongjio had seen many in his previous life. Using poison to train the body. Chapter 145. Li Zongjio, who had this idea, immediately entered the testing phase. Li Zongjio had long been accustomed to life and death situations. For others, they might hesitate for a long time and not dare to try such a risky thing. However, after learning about this method, Li Zongjio directly began. It was normal for ordinary people to hesitate, but Li Zongjio had already seen through life and death and was not afraid of death. Moreover, Li Zongjio's alchemy skills were enough for him to deal with all kinds of situations and solve these problems one by one. Therefore, Li Zongjio was not afraid. A stalk of blood poison grass appeared in his hand. Along the way from the Blackwater Forest, Li Zongjio had obtained quite a number of medicinal ingredients. Some of these medicinal ingredients had healing properties and auxiliary properties. However, within the Blackwater Forest, there were also quite a number of medicinal ingredients that had toxic properties. The blood poison grass was just as its name implied. Only 1 or 2 drops of the blood poison grass's juice was needed to fuse a person's blood into a solid state and directly kill them. It was a terrifying poison. For ordinary people, even if they saw it from afar, they would take a detour and avoid it. Now, Li Zongjio directly put the blood poison grass into his mouth. This stalk of blood poison grass could produce at least 20 drops of venom. With such a huge amount of venom entering the body, even a yuanshi expert would not be able to resist the blood poison grass and die within an hour. It tastes terrible. Li Zongjio only felt that his tongue was extremely dry and his mouth was filled with a strange taste. However, the most important thing was that the blood in his body suddenly constricted, as if the venom had frozen his body. The terrifying poison continued to spread into his body. The yuan power in his body wanted to surge out to extinguish the poison, but Li Zongjio forcibly suppressed it in his body. Then, he started to circulate the ancient golden body art. Sure enough, the effect was remarkable. Although the venom in his body had fused with his body, under the operation of the ancient tyrant golden body art, it gradually turned into energy and entered Li Zongjio's body. There weren't many changes on the surface of his body, but Li Zongjio could already feel it. Next time, if he were to consume the blood poison grass again, he would definitely be able to survive. Other than the fact that it tasted bad, there shouldn't be any other problems. After refining the blood poison grass, Li Zongjio opened his eyes and felt the changes in his body. Apart from increasing my poison resistance, my physical body's strength and toughness have also increased significantly. That was easy to explain. Li Zongjio's body would naturally struggle after absorbing the power of these poisons. Through this struggle, Li Zongjio's body would be able to achieve a certain level of growth. However, this method required him to constantly switch to stronger poisons. If he kept using poisons of this level, the effect would not be great. This kind of cultivation method naturally carried a considerable amount of risk. After all, the toxicity wouldn't allow one to coincidentally increase from 1 to 3. It was very likely that one would have to directly challenge the level from 1 to 5. If one couldn't withstand it, needless to say, one would just have to wait to collect the corpse. Moreover, there might not be a corpse waiting for one to collect it. Li Zongjio furrowed his brows. He looked in front of him and said indifferently, "Come out, there's no need to hide." Li Zongjio said. Just as Li Zongjio finished speaking, a beautiful figure also appeared from behind the rock at the side. She seemed to feel a little embarrassed that her hiding place had been exposed. "Cousin Zongjio." The girl who appeared said softly, "You are Shini?" Li Zongjio thought for a while and said the name of the person in front of him. With Li Zongjio's memory, it was very difficult for him to call out a few names. After all, so much time had passed. The person who appeared in front of him made Li Zongjio smile. She was Shen Nanxiao's youngest daughter. Shen Nanxiao had a total of 3 daughters. The eldest daughter had already married somewhere else, the second daughter was said to have wandered the world, and the third daughter was Shin. She was only 1 year younger than Li Zongjio. He remembered that when they were young, Li Zongjio and Shin Yi's relationship was quite good. After all, the two of them were about the same age and had grown up together. "You're looking for me?" Li Zongjio asked. Shen Yi had been weak since she was young and had a gentle and quiet personality. She didn't have a very active personality, so she must have something to ask of Li Zongjio. The 15-year-old Shen Yi was already a pretty girl from a humble family. Her long ponytail hung down to her waist. Her white and rosy face had a youthful feeling that belonged to a flower. "What? I want to ask cousin Zongjio to do me a favor," Shin Yi said. Yesterday, this little girl was still in prison, but today she was able to come out. This little girl didn't know the specific situation, but she heard that Li Zongjio's cousin from Luoxia City had come here, but it should be the experts of Li family who helped them, so they were able to solve these problems. Shen Yi also knew that only Li Zongjio could help her with today's matter. "What's the matter?" Li Zongjio asked. "My friend, Little Flower, was taken away by a group of bad people. They are from the Park family. I don't dare to go alone, Park family. In this Guanxi town, there were many rich people. In general, it could be considered as 3 big families. Naturally, the Shen family was one of them. Then there was the Tang family that was arrested. Then there was the Park family." The Shen family's main business was hunting. The skills that were passed down over the years allowed the Shen family to develop in Guanxi town to this extent. The Park family specialized in birds and beasts. However, the market that the Park family targeted was some rare and precious species. After all, rare things were precious. "Take me there. I'll help you get it back." Li Zongjio stood up and said. Hearing Li Zongjio's words, Shen Yi's big watery eyes immediately shone brightly. It was as if she saw hope in the endless darkness. "Okay, this way." Shen Yi jumped down the several meters high rockery with a whoosh. As expected of the hunter family, any little girl's skills were very good. Looking at Shen Yi's excited appearance, Li Zongjio couldn't help but shake his head. He jumped down from the rockery. He didn't call anyone and just went alone. After all, everyone had their own things to do. Moreover, he was just going to ask for a person. It wasn't a matter of confiscating property or exterminating a family. There was no need to mobilize so many people. Chapter 146. In the Park family of Guanxi town. Although there was a storm in the town these days. But it had nothing to do with the Park family. They just needed to close the door. Whatever happened in the town, they could solve it by themselves. It had nothing to do with the Park family. Speaking of the pitiful Shen family, they had to admit that a few days ago, a little girl from the Shen family caught an incredible item. Today, a young master from an aristocratic family from a second-grade city came to inspect the goods and sell them. If they could make a profit from this, it would be a wonderful thing for the entire Park family. That was because the price was simply too tempting. Thanks to young Master Dal. If it wasn't for you, we might not have been able to get this item. It would be a real waste if the Shen family got their hands on it. Park Dalu said with a smile. After doing this, the elders of the various clans started to think highly of him. Now, they were all smiling when they saw the Poo continent. If it was in the past, they would have thought that the Poo continent only knew how to eat, drink, and defecate. But I heard this morning that the Shen family was acquitted and Tang Jiushan of the Tang family was killed by the people of Mang Mountain. His death was very tragic. The people of the Tang family were all locked up in the dungeon. The Shen family seems to have gained power. Will they come and make trouble for us? One of the Park clan's elders said. After all, before this, they were all part of the 3 great families. The 3 giants were on par with each other. Moreover, the Shen family was not aggressive. So, after a long time, they were not afraid of the Shen family. Because the Shen family's habitual way of dealing with things was to turn big problems into small ones. The head of the Park family, Park Guangyuan, frowned. He looked at the time. What can the Shen family do even if they know about it? Before this incident, they were only on par with us. Do you think they can destroy our Park family? Park Guangyuan said. Seeing that these people were still uneasy, he said again. Alright, don't worry. Do you know who the buyer is this time? Looking at Pu Guangyuan's mysterious gaze, these people couldn't help but look at him, their eyes filled with anticipation. The third young master of the Zheng clan from the second-grade city, Giant Jade Wave City. Zheng Haoran. Now, you know the weight of this. Hearing that the patriarch had finally mentioned this person, the few of them exclaimed loudly. It was simply unbelievable. Even when they heard this name, they couldn't react in time. It's actually the Zheng clan of Cerulean Wave Giant City. That's incredible. That's incredible. If I can form a relationship with the Zheng clan. Some people were also very smart and quickly thought of this idea. Blue Wave Giant City. Those that could be called giant cities were those that were in the process of becoming first-class cities. There were only a few first-class cities in the entire Dinghuan province. If he succeeded, his status would be completely different. Back then, when he changed his name to this name, he had already expressed his determination. The Zheng family was the #1 family in Emerald Wave Giant City. There was no doubt about that. In fact, the people from the Zheng family were the most famous and the most powerful people in the area. The entire region was the Zheng family's territory. It was just that they didn't care about it for the time being. It was almost impossible for people like them to climb up to such a towering existence. After all, in front of the Zheng clan, they were like ants under the feet of a giant. They wouldn't even know when they would be accidentally trampled to death. How could they squat down and talk to you? But now, there was really such an opportunity. As long as this transaction was successful. Then, if they could form a relationship with the Zheng clan, casually plucking a strand of hair would be enough to make the Park clan soar. It was simply too exhilarating. It seemed that the opportunity to rise to the top was right in front of them. How could these people not be excited? So, no matter what, this transaction must be well prepared. The most important thing is to leave a good impression in front of them. There's only one chance, it must succeed, said Park Guangyuan. He clenched his fists. What Shen family? He had completely thrown it to the back of his mind. After this day, he would settle the score with the Shen family. Just as the elders were thinking about the future, a voice suddenly rang out. A guard of the Park clan came to report. Someone at the door asked their master to go out. Who is so arrogant that he dares to ask me to welcome him personally? Is it Lu Jianzhong? Park Guangyuan's eyes darkened and his face was full of anger. He was the master of the Park clan. Perhaps he would soar and become the #1 family within 1,000 miles. Who dared to ask him to meet him directly? The guard was quite straightforward. Since he had said so, he would pass on the message. Father, is it that person? Park Dalu quickly reminded him. That person? Hearing his son's reminder, Park Guangyuan suddenly came to his senses. It was indeed possible. Calculating the time, it was not impossible. Yes. You reminded me. Tell me, what does the person look like? The guard thought for a while and said, 17 or 18 years old. Well, he's dressed very simply. There's a cute girl beside him. 17 or 18 years old. Isn't that Zheng Haoran's age? You're courting death. Why didn't you say so earlier? Park Guangyuan stepped forward and kicked the guard away. Then, with a smile on his face, he hurriedly walked towards the door. The few elders of the Park clan behind him also quickly followed to show their respect. Li Zongjiao and Xin Yi stood at the door of the Park clan. If it wasn't for the fact that there was a girl beside him, Li Zongjiao would have directly broken these people's necks and taken them away. It was precisely because of this factor that Li Zongjiao refrained from making a move and tried to make peace. However, Li Zongjiao's tone was not small. Just now, he directly asked the guard to call their master out. Shen Yi looked suspiciously at Li Zongjiao, who was beside her. There was also some admiration and curiosity in her eyes. Just now, Li Zongjiao had said, "Call your family head out." How many youths could have such a heroic spirit? However, Shen Yi was also worried that they would not pay attention to them. Maybe they would directly call a group of guards and directly throw them out. In the Park clan of Guanxi town. Although there was a storm in the town these days. But this had nothing to do with the Park clan. They just needed to close the door. Whatever happened inside, they could solve it by themselves. It had nothing to do with them. However, speaking of the pitiful Shen family, they had to admit that a few days ago, a girl from the Shen family caught an incredible item. Today, a young master from an aristocratic family from a second-grade city came to inspect the goods and sell them. If they could make a profit from this, it would be a wonderful thing for the entire Park family. That was because the price was simply too tempting. It's all thanks to young Master Dao. If it wasn't for you, we might not be able to get this item. It would be a real waste if this item was caught by the Shen family. Park Dalu said with a smile. After doing this, the elders of the other clans thought highly of him. Now, they were all smiling when they saw Park Dalu. If it was in the past, they would think that Park Dalu only knew how to eat, drink, and defecate. But I heard this morning that the Shen family was acquitted and Tang Jioshan of the Tang clan was killed by the people of Mang Mountain. His death was very tragic. The people of the Tang clan were all locked up in the dungeon. The Shen family seems to have gained power. Will they come and make trouble for us? One of the Park clan's elders said. After all, they were all part of the 3 great clans before this. The strength of the 3 great clans was on par with each other. Moreover, the Shen family was not aggressive. So, after a long time, they were not afraid of the Shen family. Because the Shen family's habitual way of dealing with things was to turn big problems into small ones and small ones into nothing. The head of the Park clan, Park Guangyuan, frowned. He looked at the time. What can the Shen family do even if they know about it? Before this incident, their strength was on par with ours. Can they destroy our Park clan? Park Guangyuan said. Seeing that these people were still a little uneasy, he opened his mouth again. Alright, don't worry. Do you know who the buyer is this time? Looking at Pu Guangyuan's mysterious gaze, these people couldn't help but look at him, their eyes filled with anticipation. The 3rd young master of the Zheng family from the 2nd-grade city, Jade Wave Giant City. Zheng Haoren. Now, you know the importance of this. Hearing that the patriarch had finally mentioned this person, the few of them exclaimed loudly. It was simply unbelievable. Even when they heard this name, they couldn't react in time. It's actually the Zheng family of Jade Wave Giant City. This is incredible. Incredible, incredible. If we can have some relationship with the Zheng family, some people were also very smart and quickly thought of this idea. Jade Wave Giant City. Those who could be called a giant city were those who were trying to become a first-grade city. There were only a few first-grade cities in the entire Dinghuan province. If they were successful, their status would be completely different. When they changed their name to this name, they had already shown their determination. And this Zheng family was the number 1 clan in Jade Wave Giant City. There was no doubt about this. Chapter 147. Shen Yi's eyes widened and her mouth dropped open. She couldn't be more shocked. These people had a flattering and apologetic smile on their faces. When they arrived in front of Li Zongjio, they nodded and bowed as if they were looking at their ancestor. This, Shen Yi covered her mouth in shock. Li Zongjio stood in front of them and watched. He was also a little surprised. Why were these people so agitated and respectful? If that was the case, it was fortunate that he didn't make a move just now. Since he was so polite, then everyone should be more polite with their words. Ahem. Li Zongjio coughed and cleared his throat. May I ask, are you the 3rd young master of the Zheng family? Pu Guangyuan came in front of Li Zongjio and bowed. He smiled and asked gently. Although it was a little shabby to see that the young master of the Zheng family was only followed by a maid, this level of existence wasn't something that the people of the Pu family could understand and guess. Perhaps these upper-class people just liked to travel in a simple and relaxed way. Maybe. He didn't dare to make wild guesses. Of course, he couldn't easily offend them. Zheng family? No, I'm Li Zongjio. This is my cousin, Shen Yi from the Shen family. Li Zongjio shook his head and said, This time I'm here, no? Shen family? Little brat from the Shen family? Pu Guangyuan's bent waist instantly straightened. The expression on his face instantly turned into killing intent. He sized up Li Zongjio and Shen Yi in front of him. Where did this little brat come from? Get lost. I'm in a good mood today, so I won't argue with you. Scram back to where you came from. Hurry up and leave. Pu Guangyuan's face instantly turned cold. He waved his sleeve at Li Zongjio. What a waste of expression. He even felt like he was being played. If he didn't have the mood to receive the young master of the Zheng family and didn't want to see blood, he would have already taught these two brats a lesson. Then he would throw them out. When Li Zongjio heard the other party's words, his expression instantly darkened. Shen Yi saw that they were not to be trifled with and could not help but tug at the corner of Li Zongjio's clothes. Why don't we just forget about it? We'll call Daddy over. When Shen Yi saw their ferocious expressions, she was already frightened. Be good and turn around. Li Zongjio turned Shen Yi around. At the same time, his figure flashed and rushed towards Pu Guangyuan. Hey, stop! Pu Guangyuan stopped and turned around. He wanted to teach Li Zongjio a lesson again, but he saw a black shadow smashing towards his face. Oh no! Pu Guangyuan had goosebumps all over his body. At this moment, he could feel the stare of death. Bang! There was a loud bang, and the sound seemed to come from inside the body. At the same time, a sharp pain attacked Pu Guangyuan, causing his vision to turn black, and then he fell down. Pa! Li Zongjio stomped Piao Guangyuan's head into the ground with one foot. It took Pu Guangyuan a while to wake up. He was actually knocked out by someone. How dare you attack the patriarch? You're courting death. Who are you? The surrounding people were instantly stunned. They stared at Li Zongjio and gritted their teeth. They couldn't wait to capture Li Zongjio, but when they saw Li Zongjio's appearance, they knew that Li Zongjio was not to be trifled with. A few days ago, you guys took away a friend of my little cousin's. Hand him over and I won't kill you. Li Zongjio looked around and said. He glanced at Pu Guangyuan, who was still struggling to get up. With a flick of his finger, he sent a stream of yuan energy into Pu Guangyuan's arm. Suddenly, there was a pa sound. Blood splattered, and a bloody hole appeared. Pu Guangyuan, who was still unconscious, screamed in pain. Next, your head. Li Zongjio said indifferently. Don't mess around. What friend? What person? You better tell us clearly. Otherwise, how can we hand him over to you? That's right. We didn't capture your people. Don't slander us. Hurry up and release our patriarch. Someone roared. He even held a steel fork in his hand. If there was a chance, he would definitely stab Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio sighed softly when he heard this. He counted a total of 7 people around him. But he flicked his finger. A streak of essence force directly blasted Pu Guangyuan's head apart. Bang! Blood splattered. In Li Zongjio's eyes, it was as if he wasn't stepping on a life, but a weak ant that couldn't be any weaker. Yet, he had taken the life of the head of the Park family so easily. I've already said it. It's you who didn't give me a chance. Hand him over. Li Zongjio said indifferently. However, these people seemed to still be immersed in the sorrow of their patriarch's death. They couldn't believe that their patriarch died just like that. They were still alive and kicking just a moment ago. Just a moment ago, they were still imagining a beautiful future together. Now, they were already dead. This was simply a disaster that couldn't be avoided. You killed our patriarch. You actually killed our patriarch. It seemed that the death of their patriarch was a huge blow to them. Li Zongjio shook his head. He sighed softly and then rushed towards the person closest to him. He punched him and knocked him down to the ground. Bang! The person who fell to the ground immediately cursed in his heart. If you don't hand him over, I'll kill another one. Li Zongjio looked at the people around him and said, Great Elder, let go of our Great Elder. What are you trying to do? Let go of the Great Elder. We didn't catch anyone from the Shen family. You better be clear. Or you. Li Zongjio sneered when he heard this. He was still stubborn. I'd like to see if your mouth is harder than my finger. As soon as Li Zongjio finished speaking, he flicked his fingers again. A terrifying surge of essence energy erupted, directly blasting this Grand Elder's head into smithereens. Bang! Another puddle of blood and brain matter splattered everywhere. In their eyes, this scene was already the second shock. It was truly shocking, to the point that it was difficult to breathe. Such a scene of blood gushing out was something that had only been seen when slaughtering pigs. "You're next." Li Zongjio pointed at a person. "I don't know. I really don't know. I really don't know. It has nothing to do with me. I'll leave the Park family. I'll leave the Park family. Okay?" Just when Li Zongjio was about to make a move, suddenly, a shout came from the door. "Cousin Zongjio, Flowery is not a person. It's a deer." Chapter 148. At this time, Li Zongjio had already killed 3 people, including the family head. Originally, Li Zongjio had thought that these people's bones were so tough that they dared to ignore death so close at hand. In his heart, he was somewhat impressed. He was only afraid that they had nothing to be afraid of. If they were not afraid of anything, then it was equivalent to them having no weaknesses. Therefore, Li Zongjio was still considering whether he should use another method to force them. However, Shin Yi shouted from behind. Li Zongjio was also surprised. "Why didn't you say that you were not a human? Look at how many people were killed by you." It turned out that they were not strong, but they really didn't know. Their ending was really funny. It was impossible for Li Zongjio to admit his mistake. "Oh, so it's the elk. Now, hand over the elk. What's its name again?" "Yes, it's called Little Flower." Li Zongjio said indifferently and looked at the people in front of him. The people in the Park family were already scared silly by Li Zongjio's actions. He broke into the Park family's house and started a massacre. "Prepare the ballista. Fire." Suddenly, a young voice came from the house. Everyone turned around and saw 3 ballistas already lined up and aimed at Li Zongjio. The person who gave the order was none other than Pu Dalu. When Pu Dalu saw Shin Yi, he knew that these people were from the Shin family. He wanted to ignore them and hide. This way, his father and the others could say that they didn't know about this matter. But who knew that not long after he left, Pu Dalu saw his father, Pu Guangyuan, being killed by Li Zongjio. In anger, Pu Dalu immediately mobilized the ballista in the family. Now that he saw Li Zongjio stop, he directly gave the order. If he captured the elk, then he would have no chance to make a meteoric rise in the Pu continent. How would he be able to enter Zheng Haoran's line of sight? Even if he became a dog in front of Zheng Haoran, it would be a qualitative leap for him. It would make his entire life very different. Thinking of this, Pu Dalu must kill Li Zongjio. As his voice faded, 3 powerful explosions that were like raging flames could be heard, penetrating through the air as they attacked. Bang, bang, bang. Every sound was like the dull roar of a 1,000-year-old beast. His furious roar caused the surrounding elders of the Park family to become agitated. "We should have pushed this thing out long ago. Kill this kid. Even a level 7 Yuan master might not be able to dodge this move. At such a close distance, death is certain." The 3 1-meter-long crossbow bolts were shot directly at Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio's reaction was also very fast. The Yuan energy around his body surged out and immediately attached to his body, forming a swirling airflow. Boom, boom, boom. The 3 crossbows directly changed direction in front of Li Zongjio. Although it was only a very small arc, the crossbow bolts directly shot in another direction. Bang, bang, bang. One of the arrows hit an elder's head, causing it to explode. It was like a real tofu pudding. One person's heart was pierced. He was still standing in the same place, but there was a bloody hole in his chest. As for the other person, he was shot horizontally by an arrow. Half of his body was directly split diagonally. His intestines, livers, and internal organs splattered on the ground along with his scarlet blood. When this hell-like scene appeared in front of these people, it immediately caused the nearby members of the Park family to retreat in fright. They did not dare to turn around to take a look. Such a scene was simply too shocking for them. This was a living person. What? Seeing this scene, Pu Dalu was shocked. At such a close distance, how could he miss? How could he dodge it so easily? Pu Dalu's heart was immediately filled with anger. Suddenly, a light flashed in front of his eyes, and he saw a figure appear in front of him. This figure was the person he was aiming at just now. "What do you want?" Pu Dalu suddenly shouted. Li Zongjio sneered, reached out his hand, and pressed Pu Dalu's head on the crossbow. Boom! With a flip of his hand, he sent the person behind the crossbow flying. Li Zongjio pulled the bowstring of the crossbow, and Pu Dalu's head was in the path of the bowstring. His hand loosened. Suddenly, the ballista let out a loud explosion. Bang! This sound was louder and louder than any sound Pu Dalu had heard before. After this sound, he couldn't hear anything else. The last thing he saw was himself rolling around. Everything in front of him was a mess. The bowstring was stained with blood when it returned to its original position. Just now, when the bowstring was shot out, it was like a sharp and swift knife. It directly cut Pu Dalu's head into two halves. The part below the nose was still intact, but the head above the nose had already been sent flying. At the cut, one could see the broken bones neatly. In front of these people, this ghastly scene was also filled with great shock. Blurg! The guards of the Park family were already vomiting. Even they couldn't bear such a bloody scene. It was indeed too horrible. In just a few seconds, the scene was covered in blood. The only remaining elder on the scene looked at the scene in front of him in a daze. These people were just imagining a beautiful future together. In the blink of an eye, their stomachs were cut open, their heads exploded, and they were either dead or injured. No, among so many people, no one was injured. They were all killed in one move. It was just that some of them died in a more miserable way. It was hard to accept. This person just barged in and killed people. Wasn't this too much? Wasn't this too arrogant? He didn't even care about the laws of this dynasty. Was this the barbaric era? You're the only one left. Go and bring Flowery out. Otherwise, I'll kill you and go find her myself. Li Zongjio looked at the last person and said indifferently. When the person heard Li Zongjio's words, his heart skipped a beat. Flowery, the extremely rare five-colored elk. It was supposed to bring endless glory and wealth to the Park family. But now, the only thing it brought was a calamity before their eyes. The glory and wealth were only in their imagination and expectations. But this destructive disaster was right in front of them. They couldn't get used to it at all. Chapter 149. In the end, the elder panicked and took out the five-colored elk that was locked in the cage. Not only did these people tie the five-colored elk's limbs with chains, but they also tied the elk's limbs. At the same time, they also surrounded the cage with nails. This was because the five-colored elk was very strong. If they didn't trap it, it might break out of the cage. This five-colored elk was half the height of a human. Li Zongjio sized it up carefully. This elk's body seemed to emit a holy radiance. It was actually a spirit beast that could understand human nature. Such an existence was very rare. There were a total of 5 colors on its body. This was already very rare. Ordinary elks were also very ordinary. Now, this elk had so many colors on its body. According to records, some of the organs on this 5-colored elk's body had the effect of gathering spirit. It was even rarer to obtain this kind of spirit beast than a powerful meta-beast. For example, the black crystal fox that Li Zongjio found that day was considered a low-level spirit beast. Firstly, it was relatively small. Secondly, its intelligence was not very high. These spirit beasts all had one thing in common. They were peace-loving. Usually, they didn't fight. However, Li Zongjio had heard in his previous life that on this continent, there seemed to be a sect formed by spirit beasts. The spirit beasts in this sect had already cultivated into humans and were peace-loving. Under normal circumstances, their daily task was to eat grass and cultivate. If the bottom line of these spirit beasts was really crossed, they would come out in full force and eliminate all the dangers. This was the scary part about these spirit beasts. It was said that their fighting strength was 10 times more than that of a human elementalist of the same level. Therefore, spirit beasts that were able to cultivate had terrifying strength. This 5-colored elk seemed to have entered the threshold of cultivation. However, it was too young and weak. Now, it was trapped by these people. Otherwise, with their abilities, they wouldn't have been able to trap this 5-colored elk. Little Flower. When Shen Yi saw the 5-colored elk, she was pleasantly surprised. She ignored the danger and rushed towards the 5-colored elk. When the five-colored elk saw Shen-Yi, its eyes emitted a bright light. It seemed to be very happy and excited. "What are you waiting for?" Li Zongjio said calmly. The elder of the Park family immediately nodded and went forward to open the cage. At the same time, he removed the chains. The five-colored elk immediately ran towards Shen-Yi excitedly. He came in front of Shen-Yi and kept rubbing his antlers against the girl in front of him. When he looked at Li Zongjio, there was a trace of gratitude in his eyes. "This elk is quite unusual." Li Zongjio was surprised. He didn't expect the five-colored elk to have such intelligence. After all, the two sides grew up in different environments. When ordinary people heard the name of the Zheng family, they would probably be scared out of their wits. How could they still stand here and talk so casually? They were even extremely disdainful. Relying on a woman? Zheng Haoren was instantly angered by Li Zongjio's words. This Li Zongjio actually dared to insult Zheng Haoren. Who was Zheng Haoren? He was the third son of the Zheng family. Although his cultivation wasn't that amazing, he had already reached the second-grade origin general realm. His martial arts were also extraordinary. In the same age group, how many people could be compared to him? "You're courting death," Zheng Haoren growled. "The Zheng family of the Emerald Wave Giant City?" Li Zongjio shook his head. He really didn't have any impression of such a family. In the current of the world of cultivation, one might start to become the mainstay of the region today, but in the next moment, one would be replaced by others. Reality was cruel. No matter how strong one was, there would be a time when one would be replaced. Therefore, the Zheng family's name probably didn't resound for long. Li Zongjio probably didn't remember it in his previous life. Unless Li Zongjio had personally come into contact with something that was 3,000 years old, it would be very difficult for him to recall something that was 3,000 years old. "Don't be fooled, young master. This is a provocation." The maid beside her was smart and quickly stepped forward to stop him. But at this time, Zheng Haoren was like an arrow that had been released from a bow and couldn't be retracted. He struck at Li Zongjio with his palm. Chapter 150. This palm seemed to contain the power of a dragon's roar and a tiger's roar. Young Master's roaring tiger and roaring dragon palm has already reached such a level. It can actually produce both a tiger's roar and a dragon's roar at the same time. The maidservant muttered in her heart. She looked at Li Zongjio with a trace of coldness in her eyes. In reality, there was no need for young Master to take action against these lowly commoners. However, since young Master had taken action, she couldn't act on her own accord. Otherwise, wouldn't she be slapping young Master's face on top of Li Zongjio's foundation? It seemed to be saying, "You're really inferior to me. Hurry up and stop. Let me do it." My roaring tiger and roaring dragon palm is a grade 3 origin skill. A country bumpkin like you probably hasn't even seen a grade 3 origin skill. Let's see how you block it. Indeed, grade 3 origin skills were, to a certain extent, even rarer than grade 3 origin skills. After all, origin skills were the most basic and important. Hence, many people would pay any price to obtain a grade 3 origin skill. However, it was different for a Yuan skill. Many people were unable to afford such a price. Hence, they would grit their teeth and learn a grade 2 Yuan skill. By gaining a deeper understanding of it, they would occasionally have a chance. It was extremely possible for them to defeat those grade 3 Yuan skills that they were not familiar with. For example, the Li family only had one grade 3 origin skill. However, they didn't have a grade 3 origin skill. The price of a grade 3 origin skill was too high. Even within the Wuxue Pill sect, it was said that there were only about 3 grade 3 origin skills in the Hidden Scriptures Pavilion. It was already very good to have so many. However, in the Zheng family, even such a young man could cultivate a grade 3 origin skill. From the looks of it, he seemed to have been cultivating for quite a long time. To be able to reach such a realm at such a young age was already quite good. Roaring tiger and roaring dragon? I think it's more like snakes, insects, rats, and ants. Li Zongjio sneered. If such a palm technique could be considered good, then what about those people in his previous life who could shake the heavens with a wave of their hands? In front of Li Zongjio, Zheng Haoren was like a clown. Azure Light Sword Finger. Li Zongjio displayed a green light sword finger. This wasn't some exquisite primordial skill. It was even an extremely common Tier 1 origin skill. As long as one spent 50 gold coins, one could buy it from an ordinary elemental skill pavilion. Although the person who created this move was very good, this yuan skill was indeed rather useless. Using it at night to swat away flies and mosquitoes would have a miraculous effect. A green light flashed. Li Zongjio's sword finger suddenly erupted with a green light that was dozens of feet long, directly shattering Zheng Haoren's palm energy. Crush. His aura was overwhelming. This mere dazzling green light actually possessed such power. When the green light entered his eyes, Zheng Haoren immediately felt as though his mind was being pierced by thousands of arrows. Countless sharp thorns pierced his eyes from all directions. In the next second, his eyeballs were about to explode. Not good. The palm energy instantly fell, and Zheng Haoren's figure landed 3 meters in front of Li Zongjio without any warning. At this position, Zheng Haoren only needed to casually attack to kill Zheng Haoren. This was an extremely dangerous position. Since there was a chance to kill him, Li Zongjio naturally wouldn't be polite and would let him sit down and drink some tea before leaving. Blood Extermination Finger. The evil aura in his body surged. Zheng Haoren was still surrounded by the piercing green light and pain. His 2 hands frantically blocked in front of his body. Seeing that this finger filled with evil aura was about to pierce through her family's young master, the maid also let out a low shout. Her small feet stomped on the ground, and instantly, a terrifying aura spread out from the ground. Earth Snake Vine. Her elemental energy transformed into snake vines and drilled into the ground. However, it wasn't heading towards Li Zongjio or Zheng Haoren. The maid could already tell that if she were to rescue Zheng Haoren now, there would be no chance at all. The only way was to create a diversion and attack way to rescue Zhao. She just had to capture the girl in front of her. The maid's reaction was extremely fast, and at the same time, her eyes were filled with killing intent. This was a real killing move. If Shen Yi was hit, she would definitely die. Li Zongjio's eyes were filled with coldness. He naturally knew what the maid was thinking. If it was the Li Zongjio of the past, he might have ignored the maid's attack and continued to achieve his goal. However, now that Li Zongjio had been reborn, his temperament had changed. The blood extermination finger instantly changed the direction of its attack and landed on the cracks that were continuously spreading in front of him. Boom! The tyrannical power blasted into the ground and directly shattered the surface. The earth snake vine formed by the maid's elemental energy had already been blasted out. However, at the same time, the motionless Zheng Haoren was also pulled back. An earth snake vine wrapped around Zheng Haoren's body and directly pulled him back. The maid's control over her elemental energy had far surpassed Zheng Haoren's. Are you all right? Li Zongjio glanced at Shen Yi behind him. Just now, Shen Yi was locked in by the other party's aura and was still in shock. After all, the aura of death was not something that could be ignored so easily. Only after hearing Li Zongjio's words did Shen Yi regain her senses. The 5-colored elk beside her also licked Shen Yi's cheeks. How dare you plot against our family's young master? If our young master is harmed in the slightest, I will make a river of blood flow in your Guanxi town. The maid said coldly, as if she was an angry ghost. If Zheng Haoren was killed by Li Zongjio just now, she would not have survived. In that case, she would naturally not be able to survive. She would even be destroyed in an extremely cruel and inhumane way. That was what the maid was afraid of. She did not expect that this ordinary Li Zongjio in front of her would have such strength. A river of blood? I will make the 2 of you unable to walk out of the Park family's gate today. Li Zongjio said indifferently. He really wanted to play rough with Li Zongjio. Li Zongjio had never been afraid of anyone. When it came to enmity, he would resolve it on the spot. Otherwise, it would be meaningless to take revenge overnight. He would have to wait for everything. How could he have so much time? Since he had already determined that the other party came with killing intent, Li Zongjio clearly did not intend to let them leave alive. Wait! Li Zongjio was also ready to kill the maid, but the maid was also thinking about how to leave. After all, the safety of the young master was the most important thing. If she couldn't save the young master today, then the consequences would be serious. As for the brat from Guanxi town, she could just find a few people to deal with him. She didn't need to do it herself. However, Zheng Haoren, who had sobered up, raised his hand and stopped the maid beside him from fighting with Li Zongjio. I, Zheng Haoren, am convinced that the Azure Light Sword Finger can display such a level of power. I, Zheng Haoren, apologize for offending you earlier. Zheng Haoren apologized? The maidservant beside her was startled. What was going on? Her young master, who was usually as arrogant as a peacock, actually bowed his head and apologized to an ordinary county disciple? Could it be that the young master was stupid? Chapter 151. Li Zongjio was also stunned. The change was too fast and he couldn't stop it. What was this kid doing? Was he afraid of death? Zheng Haoren. This name sounded familiar to him. What's your name? Li Zongjio asked suddenly. This question was a bit hurtful. He had repeated his name so many times, but he didn't hear it. This was indeed a bit embarrassing. However, Zheng Haoren wasn't angry. Instead, he said very seriously, "My name is Zheng Haoren." Li Zongjio also tried hard to recall in his mind. Finally, he found a person who matched this name. Cerulean Wave Giant City? Zheng family's future family head? In the Xingyan dynasty, 100 cities gathering would be held every 10 years. In fact, it was mainly to compete and rank the cities. It was also a way to remind the major cities that they must work hard to cultivate. Otherwise, they would be easily surpassed. It was also to let more people know their status. The most important thing was to let the new force replace the old force. This was a process of alternation, which made everyone feel a sense of crisis. Once promoted, the area would be redistributed. The huge benefits were not something that everyone could bear to part with. About 500 years later, this cerulean wave giant city stood out in this 100 cities gathering. It successfully broke through the second tier and became a first-class city. At that time, the leading family was the Zheng family. The family head was called Zheng Haoren. It was really pitiful, even if it was held once every 10 years. The Zheng family also worked hard for a total of 50 times. With the Zheng family's strength, they led Cerulean Wave Giant City to become a first-class city. At that time, Li Zongjio had already become a distinguished guest of the dynasty, a top expert. He even became Zheng Haoren's idol in his heart. Because the two of them were similar in age, but their status was worlds apart. Similar to people like Zheng Haoren, Li Zongjio also quickly forgot about them, so he didn't think of them. Now, it could be said that the memories in the bottom layer of his mind were stimulated, and he recognized this person. Since you've already admitted your mistake, let's talk about compensation. Li Zongjio said indifferently with his hands behind his back. Although this young man was arrogant, he knew when to submit and when to stand tall. He had seen the Tao of poison, and after being beaten up by him, he knew to lower his head and admit his mistake. It doesn't matter if you are arrogant or proud, but don't be arrogant in front of Li Zongjio. Because when he was mad, you didn't even know where you were. After all, Li Zongjio was already past the age of being competitive. Now, his starting point was for the sake of the family. Of course, this was a matter of principle. Once there was a potential threat, they had to eliminate it immediately. Compensation. The maidservant beside Zheng Haoren immediately glared at her. She actually dared to demand an exorbitant price. My young master was bullied by you and you still dare to ask for compensation? He almost rolled up his sleeves and charged at Li Zongjio. However, Zheng Haoren glared at him. In front of the young master, she would always be a little maid and could not exceed her authority. Compensation is what I should do, what I should do. Look, 100,000 purple yuan for a third-grade origin skill. How about that? Zheng Haoren said hurriedly. His eyes were filled with endless respect. 100,000 purple yuan. A third-grade origin skill. When he heard Zheng Haoren's words, the eyes of the elder from the Park family were wide open. Li Zongjio had never imagined that something like this would happen. This sudden turn of events caused him to be astonished. Could it be that this guy was beaten silly by him? 100,000 purple yuan was equivalent to 10 million gold yuan. 1 purple yuan could be exchanged for 100 gold yuan. The equivalent exchange between them was also very considerable. If it was a third-grade origin skill, it would be worth around 100,000 purple yuan. He casually gave out the equivalent of 20 million gold coins as compensation. Most importantly, nothing happened to him. He only said a few words at the beginning. With the face of the Zheng family in Cerulean Wave Giant City, he should be thankful that he did not pursue the matter. Instead, he wanted compensation. Moreover, he wanted compensation. Oh my God, who is this young man? The elder from the Park family looked at Li Zongjio in shock. The Park family had died at the hands of such a person for no reason. At first, it was a little strange, but now it seemed that Li Zongjio was clearly a hidden expert. The maid looked at the young master beside her in shock. Even her personal maid could not believe it, let alone the others. In fact, the reason for Zheng Haoren's change was not that Li Zongjio had controlled his mind. Instead, it was the place where Zheng Haoren had become a disciple. There was a method similar to Li Zongjio's. The other party could also use the same green light sword finger at the same level as Li Zongjio. However, the other party was an expert who had been famous for a long time. That person had also taught Zheng Haoren that if he met someone who could use the green light sword finger in the future, he should not provoke them. Even the Zheng family could not afford to provoke such an expert. Zheng Haoren also firmly believed in this point. However, Zheng Haoren's talent was not enough. In such a sacred place for cultivation, he had only stayed for less than half a month before he was politely asked to leave. Even if the Zheng family interceded, it was useless. They said that Zheng Haoren's talent was not enough and that they could not teach him. They asked them to find someone better. However, the green light sword finger had left a deep impression on Zheng Haoren. He also remembered that sentence deeply. Li Zongjio's background did not matter. However, to be able to use this move, it must be related to that sect. Therefore, Zheng Haoren had such a big change. Of course, a disciple of such a sect would not casually reveal his identity. After thinking for a while, Zheng Haoren had already determined that Li Zongjio's identity was not simple. Even if his identity was simple, his potential and strength were definitely not simple. Li Zongjio was worthy of Zheng Haoren's flattery. It's so. Since you want to compensate with the Zheng family's strength, you should be able to get the position of the guard. Give it to my uncle, Shinan Xiao. Li Zongjio thought and said, what dynasty laws? What Jianghu rules? They were not worth mentioning in the face of strength. What position of the guard? With Zheng Haoren's identity, he only needed to casually ask and he could easily get it. No problem, no problem. Even if you want to be the city lord, our Zheng family can also appoint a few. Zheng Haoren said. As long as Li Zongjio had a request, there would be no problem. The most frightening thing was that Li Zongjio had no desires. Then, there was no way to get in touch with such a person, unless you really matched his temperament. Li Zongjio looked at Zheng Haoren in surprise. This kid was really interesting. No wonder he could become a figure in the future. Although he could only be said to be a figure who could barely be on the stage, just based on his mentality and eyesight, ordinary people could not compare to him. You're quite sensible. All right, I'll forgive you today. Chapter 152. Li Zongjio did not hold back. The Park family elder's expression turned ugly and shocked as if he had just eaten shit. At first, he had thought that the Park family had only provoked a nobody. Compared to Zheng Haoren, this was nothing. However, it seemed like the person they had provoked was even more powerful than Zheng Haoren. The elder brother, this 5-colored elk saved my life. Please lend it to me for a day. I will definitely return it after a day. Zheng Haoren said as he rubbed his hands. Elder brother, don't worry. We will not harm the life of this 5-colored elk. However, someone in the Zheng family needs this 5-colored elk to condense a spiritual soul. Zheng Haoren said, spiritual soul? This was the so-called 6 spiritual souls and 7 physical souls. It was known as a spiritual soul. It seemed like someone in the Zheng family was about to enter the Yuan monarch realm. It seems like someone in the Zheng family is about to break through to the Yuan monarch realm? Li Zongjio said nonchalantly. Li Zongjio's words completely shocked Zheng Haoran. Li Zongjio was definitely an extraordinary person. Moreover, Li Zongjio's identity might be even more terrifying than Zheng Haoran's. Ordinary people did not even know what kind of existence a Yuan monarch martialist was. There was only one adjective in their minds: powerful. Powerful. However, only those who truly understood would know that condensing a spiritual soul was the path a Yuan Zong elite had to go through to become a Yuan monarch elite. Evidently, Li Zongjio was very clear about the process of breaking through to become a Yuan monarch. Otherwise, ordinary people would not even know what condensing a spiritual soul was. That's right, Zheng Haoran said. Zheng Haoran said. When he said this, his heart was filled with pride. It was an honor that a Yuan monarch elite was about to be born. However, this matter had been kept as a family secret until now. No one could divulge it. If Li Zongjio continued to ask, Zheng Haoran would not say anything. Li Zongjio obviously did not intend to get to the bottom of this matter. Li Zongjio did not care much about a mere Yuan monarch. This 5-colored elk doesn't belong to me. It belongs to my cousin. You can borrow it from her. If she's willing, you can. If she's unwilling, then forget about it. When condensing a soul, there would be a certain amplification effect if there was a spirit beast by his side. Therefore, Zheng Haoran wanted to take the 5-colored elk away. Seeing that this guy was in such a hurry, it must be within these 2 days. Miss, I would like to borrow this 5-colored elk. It's really urgent. I, Zheng Haoran, swear on my life that I won't hurt it. Whoever dares to harm this 5-colored elk will be my enemy. Zheng Haoran said to Shen Yi. Although Shen Yi was worried looking at these people, they seemed to be very powerful. Although Shen Yi was young, she was not a fool. Naturally, she could tell that Zheng Haoran and the others were not ordinary people. Moreover, they seemed to need Little Blossom's help. This is my dearest friend, Little Blossom. Shen Yi said timidly, as if she was extremely reluctant. When Zheng Haoran saw Shen Yi's expression, he didn't know what to do. He couldn't possibly snatch such a cute little girl away from him. Moreover, Li Zongjio was still eyeing them covetously from the side. If Li Zongjio made a move, none of them would be able to survive. Every day, you will have to pay me 1,000 gold coins as a rental fee. Then, Shen Yi raised a finger and said seriously. The 5-colored elk was very touched at first. After all, Shen Yi treated it so well. However, it did not expect that it could not resist the temptation of money. It stomped its foot fiercely. However, the 5-colored elk also knew that Shen Yi was the only companion it recognized. Thank you, miss. Thank you very much. Shen Yi took out a bunch of green grass from her bosom. This is the grass I grew myself. It's Little Blossom's favorite food. Remember to feed it every day. Zheng Haoran took the handful of grass from him. Fei Yu, call for a ship. Zheng Haoran said. The maid by the side nodded. Then she took out a signal flare and fired it into the sky. Boom. Suddenly, the signal flare shot into the sky. After a while, a black mass appeared in the sky. This terrifying scene was extremely shocking to anyone who saw it. A spaceship, huh? Not bad. Li Zongjio looked at the huge spaceship that appeared in the sky. The spaceship was still high in the sky and had not landed. Otherwise, if it landed, the powerful pressure would be enough to crush the small Guanxi town. However, the speed of the spaceship was extremely terrifying. In a breath, it could travel several miles. Zheng Haoran scratched his head. If it was possible, Zheng Haoran would be willing to give Li Zongjio a spaceship. However, even though he was the 3rd young master of the Zheng family, this kind of thing couldn't be given away so easily. The Zheng family only had a total of 3 spaceships. Apart from its fast movement speed, it was also a very powerful and destructive weapon, and it could shake the sky ship. They only needed 2 ships. Within 4 hours, they would be able to capture the Snow Pill sect. Even with Chu Oran's cultivation base, he would still be turned into ashes in one move when facing the sky-shaking ship. Everyone, thank you. See you again. Zheng Haoran took the 5-colored elk and cupped his hands together with the maid behind him. There were not many children who were so polite. Li Zongjio thought in his heart. Especially for a disciple like Zheng Haoran, who came from such a big family, it was already an honor to be able to look at you. However, in front of Li Zongjio, he was so obedient and polite. It was not because of Li Zongjio's good looks, but because of Li Zongjio's strength, which won this respect. Take good care of Little Blossom, Shen Yi shouted towards the sky. However, the roar of the spaceships covered Shen Yi's voice. Although Little Blossom was taken away, at least Shen Yi knew that Little Blossom was safe. Don't worry. If anything happens to Little Blossom, I will destroy the Zheng family for you. Li Zongjio patted Shen Yi's head and said. Since it was something that Li Zongjio guaranteed, of course, he would take responsibility. After all, Shen Yi was a member of his family. If she was wronged in the slightest, he would have to go on a killing spree to appease her. Brother, it's called Little Blossom, not Little Blossom. Li Zongjio and Shen Yi walked out of the gate of the Park family. The people of the Park family had long been shocked by what had happened today. They did not even have the thought of revenge. However, what was even more shocking was that on that very night, a transfer order came from Qingyu City. One level above Guanxi Town was Qingyu City. The city lord of Qingyu City and the Lu family of Beipu City had a good relationship. Therefore, at that time, it was not difficult to transfer Lu Jianzhong to Guanxi Town to be a garrison guard. Now, Qingyu City had directly sent the order. They said that Lu Jianzhong was sick and could not take up the position of guard. At the same time, they sent Shen Nanxiao from the Shen family to take up the position. Suddenly, the entire Shen family was in an uproar. Chapter 153. Now, the Shen family had 2 consecutive happy events. First, it was the old master's 70th birthday. Then, Shen Nanxiao's appointment as the town's garrison guard made everyone envious. The Shen family was the #1 family in Guanxi Town, but now it seemed that the entire town was going to be taken over by the Shen family. The instigator of all this was Li Zongjio. After hearing this, he smiled. Appointing a town's garrison guard was not a big deal for someone of Zheng Haoran's status. After all, many people would give him face. Moreover, this position was used to appease people and did not have any real power. Therefore, Wang Chao did not care at all. Given the small number of soldiers in the town, even if they wanted to rebel, it would be useless. In fact, this was the case. Wang Chao had painstakingly gathered the soldiers and trained them for more than 10 years, but in the end, he was no match for an ordinary general. For example, if 2 or 3 soldiers of the Xuanwu army came, they would have no problem destroying Guanxi village. If a group of soldiers came, it wouldn't even take an hour for the village to be conquered. Speaking of oil and water, such a small amount of oil and water could hardly fill one's stomach. Therefore, only people who were not in an important position would come to such a place. While the Shen family was bustling with noise and excitement, preparing for the banquet the day after tomorrow, in the Lu family of North Pu City, which was about 700 miles away from Guanxi Town, however, there were some people who were unhappy. Lu Jianzhong was the young master of the Lu family. However, Lu Jianzhong did not know how to control his strength and did not close his lower body properly, so he committed a big crime. In order to settle this matter, Lu Jianzhong was put in this relationship. Lu Jianzhong's father was the master of the Lu family. Lu Tingfei was furious. What? You want to change it? What is the meaning of Qingyu City? What do you want my son to do? Eat shit. When Lu Tingfei received the news, he smashed the mahogany table beside him with a slap. It seemed that next time, he would have to place some tables made of iron next to these big shots. Otherwise, he really couldn't afford to change the table every 3 days. Patriarch Lu, please calm down. This is the will of our city lord. I'm just a messenger. In addition, according to the information we received, it seems that a few days ago, Guanxi Town was invaded by bandits from Mang Mountain. The town guard of Guanxi Town was seriously injured and bedridden. The person who had come was an envoy from Qingyu City. After all, the person in charge of passing on the message had a good relationship with the Lu clan. Every year, the Lu clan would send a lot of benefits to Qingyu City. Every year, there would be no shortage of benefits. Therefore, the transfer order this time did not reveal too much information. However, they still had to inform the Lu family's patriarch, which was considered giving him face. What? My son is injured. What's going on? Lu Tingfei immediately stood up, extremely excited. I've already delivered the message. Patriarch Lu, I still have important matters to attend to, so I won't disturb you any further. Oh right, Patriarch Lu, our city lord also asked me to give you a personal warning. What? Lu Tingfei was currently filled with anger. If he did not release it, it would condense in his chest and become a mental illness. Don't provoke the Shun clan of Guanxi Town. The person who delivered the message cupped his hands and then turned around to leave. He did not give Lu Tingfei a chance to vent his anger. Moreover, if Lu Tingfei was angry, he would not be facing this person. Don't provoke the Shun clan? What kind of trash is the Shun clan? My northern Pulu clan is not afraid of the Shun clan. How could Lu Tingfei care about so much? Now that such a big incident had happened in Guanxi Town, and even his son had been robbed by the bandits, how could he let it go? Wasn't the black poison old man protecting Lu Jianzhong? Could it be that the black poison old man had also met with an accident? Therefore, Lu Tingfei became angry when he thought of this. There must be something fishy about this. I'd like to see what the Shun clan is up to. Lu Tingfei did not hesitate and immediately gathered his men. Lu Biao, immediately bring your men to the carriage and prepare a fast horse. I want to reach the Shun clan within a day. I want to catch them off guard. Lu Tingfei cursed. Lu Biao was Lu Tingfei's personal bodyguard. After receiving the order, he immediately went to carry it out. What happened to our Jianzhong? Is he all right? A well-dressed woman with a round figure came out. She seemed to have heard some news about Lu Jianzhong, but she did not hear it clearly. She hurried over and saw Lu Tingfei and the others were already ready to go. It seemed like they were going to war. Madam, you rest in the house. I'm going to Guanxi Town. Lu Tingfei's style of doing things was very fiery. Now that Lu Jianzhong had gotten into trouble, he was dismissed from his position and was injured by these bandits. Lu Tingfei would not believe that there was no connection between these two events. Then, the Lu clan's men also galloped toward Guanxi Town. The horses galloped. Dust flew everywhere. When the day of the birthday banquet arrived, it was also drizzling. The road was clear after being washed by the rain. Early in the morning, a team of carriages was rushing over from afar. They ate a lot of dust on the way, but when they reached the gate, they were washed clean by the rain. Shen Nanxiao and the others were already waiting at the gate. The person who came was none other than Li Tianqin. A few days ago, Li Tianqin came with a team to celebrate Old Master Shin Chuanxiu's birthday. Now, the birthday banquet was held in the Shun clan's courtyard. Originally, they did not want to make a fuss and wanted to keep everything simple. However, Shen Nanxiao had become the new garrison lord with a piece of paper. This made everyone feel as if they had been injected with chicken blood. Not only did they have to do it, but they also had to do it well. At the same time, the entire Shun clan's courtyard was flooded with people who came to present their congratulatory gifts. Anyone with a reputation came to attend the birthday banquet. Some of the people who didn't want to come prepared their congratulatory gifts when they heard that Shen Nanxiao had been appointed as the new guardian. Xiangji Road's steward Ma presents a 100-year-old ginseng and a 100-year-old Ganoderma. East Wind Alley's Liang family rice shop presents 5 kilograms of premium linoleum rice and 2 pairs of ivory. The housekeeper, who was standing at the gate, kept shouting into the house, reporting the congratulatory gifts in his hands. These people could not have come empty-handed. Even if they had brought gifts, they would not have dared to bring simple gifts. If the gifts they brought were better than the ones they brought, they would be more respected. Even the people of the Shun clan would pay more attention to them. Some people smiled happily, while others smiled awkwardly. If the gifts they brought were not good enough, they would lose face. Sitting there, they felt as if they were sitting on pins and needles. Some of them hurriedly went back halfway to bring more generous gifts. This was really strange. Chapter 154. When Li Zongjio heard that Li Tianqing had arrived, he went out to greet him. He looked travel-worn and didn't seem to encounter any danger along the way. After all, Li Tianqing went out personally, and there were a lot of Yuan master experts around him. If they really encountered someone, they wouldn't dare to be too arrogant. Although Luoxia City's Li family's reputation wasn't that great, it wasn't too dangerous along the way. If it was some dangerous place, then Li Tianqing and the others would have to be careful and keep a low profile. When they came out, they saw Li Tianqing sitting in front of Shen Chuanqiu like an obedient child, obediently listening to Shen Chuanqiu's lecture. Of course, it was more of an exchange and sharing of things. After all, Li Tianqing was now a person with status, not the wanderer in rags who came here to ask for a drink. Although he was called a wanderer, he was more like a refugee. "How's your Li family recently?" Shen Chuanqiu asked. "Not bad, not bad." Li Tianqing quickly nodded and said. Now, the Li family was like the sun in the sky in Luoxia City, but Li Tianqing didn't become arrogant because of it. It should be known that there were still many internal and external troubles that had not been solved. He had just taken over the Xianyuan ore. It could be said that the surrounding mountains were also eyeing covetously. Moreover, the people in the Flying Cloud City were like hungry wolves. Although they didn't dare to attack now, they wouldn't hesitate to rush up and tear you to shreds as soon as they found out about your situation. Fortunately, the Li family was internally united. Otherwise, the family would have been directly disbanded. Of course, Li Tianqing was most concerned about it. It was the situation in northern Medicine City. Wang Lu had become an alchemy porter. He did his best in the Li family in the hope that one day he could be reborn and regain his freedom. With Wang Lu's ability, there was no way he could break free from the Li family. Therefore, Wang Lu was also very self-aware. However, the threat of the Northern Medicine Alliance had not been eliminated. After the incident with the invitation card, Li Tianqing captured Wang Lu and interrogated him. Only then did he find some information. At the same time, he also sent people to Northern Medicine City to keep watch. He wanted to see what the situation was with the Northern Medicine Alliance in Northern Medicine City. However, based on the current situation, it seemed that they wouldn't be able to buy too much time. Once the time was up, the Li family would face a true catastrophe. The newly appointed leader of the Northern Medicine Alliance had yet to stabilize the situation within the alliance. Once he gained power, he would definitely eliminate the Li family of Luoxia City. Leaving no room for future troubles was their style. Therefore, Li Tianqing had sent many people to investigate the situation of the Northern Medicine Alliance. Once the situation was critical, they had to be prepared to welcome the arrival of a catastrophe. I asked Li Zongjio to help me organize the banquet, but I don't know where he went. You don't say. If it weren't for Zongjio, I would probably be dead now. Shen Chuanqiu said. He was very satisfied with this little grandson of his. As he spoke, he coughed a few times in excitement. Father, are you okay? Why are you coughing so badly recently? Shen Xinqiao quickly stepped forward and patted Shen Chuanqiu's back. Sigh, I'm getting old. It's just these things. I've already gotten over it. Originally, I was going to give the position of the head of the family to Nanxiao, but now that Nanxiao has become the guardian, I can only give the position to Xinqiao. Father, what nonsense are you talking about? Shen Xinqiao suddenly said. For small families like this, they would usually wait until the older generation passed away before handing over the position of power. This was the only way to ensure the survival of the family. The experience of the elders was something that the later generations could learn from. How can I not know my own situation? Shen Chuanqiu said with a long sigh. At this moment, Li Zongjio stepped forward. Grandfather, this situation should be caused by the outbreak of the Thunderblood spider's poison. Li Zongjio came in front of Shen Chuanqiu. You still know how to show up? Why don't you go and help out? You only know how to slack off. Li Tianqing stood up and said when he saw Li Zongjio. Shut up and move aside. Zongjio, what did you just say? Shen Xinqiao suddenly shouted. This man liked to prove his existence, but it was useless against Shen Xinqiao. He was directly pushed aside by Shen Xinqiao. Its eyes stared straight at Li Zongjio. Shen Chuanxiu, who was standing at the side, was also extremely shocked. How did you know, Thunderblood Spider? This was a vicious poisonous creature that Shen Chuanxiu had hunted a few years ago. At that time, it was an accident. When the hunting team of the family entered the forest to hunt, they accidentally entered the nest of the Thunderblood Spider. In order to cover the retreat of the family, Shen Chuanxiu fought the Thunderblood Spider alone. This Thunderblood Spider was considered a top existence among the first-grade metabeasts. It even had a strong poison. At that time, Shen Chuanxiu killed the Thunderblood Spider, but at the last moment, the poison of the Thunderblood Spider splashed on his body. Fortunately, it was not much. With the strong vitality of his youth, he was able to suppress the poison through the interaction of some medicinal herbs. After so many years, he thought that the poison was about to dissipate. But now, it suddenly erupted. The outbreak of the poison was equivalent to a death clock. Now that he was already so old, he did not have the energy to resist such poison. Moreover, the condition of his body was deteriorating. The day of his death was not far away. Although it has been lurking in the body for a long time and has mutated, it is not difficult to detoxify it. I need to find another medicinal herb to refine a detoxification pill for grandfather. Li Zongjio said. Really? What do you need? Shen Xinxiao quickly asked. However, Shen Chuanxiu seemed to have thought of something and looked at Li Zongjio. Wait, you really know how to refine pills? The memory of Li Zongjio feeding him poison was still vivid in his mind. If not for his tough life, he would have died long ago. Zongjio's alchemy skills have improved a lot recently, Li Tianqing said without changing his expression. If you want to refine pills, you will need the Thunderblood Spider's poison sac or the meta crystal in the Thunderblood Spider King's body. Li Zongjio said. The Thunderblood Spider King was equivalent to a second-grade meta beast. It was equivalent to a meta master. The Thunderblood Spider King is equivalent to a second-grade meta beast. Where can you get it? It must be priceless. Shen Chuanxiu shook his head. It is not worth it for an old man like me. Chapter 155. Shen Chuanxiu was naturally distressed. However, Shen Xinxiao only said one sentence. Don't worry. Leave this matter to Tianqing. Li Tianqing exclaimed, but his chest was quickly hammered by Shen Xinxiao. He immediately came to his senses and nodded repeatedly. Yes. Don't worry, father. Leave this matter to me. Li Zongjio's grandfather passed away early. It was said that he suffered from qi deviation when he was cultivating. He had been castrated since he was very young. Li Tianqing was also the head of the family when he was young. At that time, the Li family was on the verge of collapse. If not for Li Tianqing's efforts, the family might not have been able to survive. Congratulatory gift? Do you want my saber or not? Get out of my way. Several members of the Shen family were happily chatting. Shen Nanxiao and the others were also chatting in twos and threes. Most of the people had already arrived. However, Chen had not arrived yet, so the conversation did not start. Just as these people were trying their best to build a good relationship with the Shen family. However, they heard such a rude voice. The owner of the voice was a little unfamiliar. They seemed to have never heard of such a person before. Immediately, they frowned. Who is this person? How dare he be so arrogant? That's right. He actually dares to cause trouble at this time. It seems like he doesn't want to live anymore. The quarrel at the door continued. But soon, with a bang, the head butler of the Shen family was sent flying with a kick and fell to the ground. Then, a group of people with long sabers at their waists could be seen entering the door in a single file and standing on both sides. These people's faces were ferocious, but at the same time, the word arrogance was clearly written on their faces. They were extremely arrogant. It seemed that in their eyes, these people were just low-class people. After the 2 rows of guards had arrived and stood in position, a luxuriously dressed old man walked in. He looked young and his face was glowing. But in fact, he was at least 60 or 70 years old. However, due to the fact that he cultivated yuan power, his physique appeared to be extremely healthy. When he walked in, he gave off an overbearing feeling. I'm Shen Nanxiao of the Shen clan. How did my Shen clan offend you? Why are you attacking us? Shen Nanxiao immediately stepped forward and said. His eyes were filled with a radiance and spirit that would not tolerate humiliation. Now that Shen Nanxiao was the eldest son of the family, he was also the guard of Guanxi Town. With a different status, he naturally had different responsibilities. Now that something had happened, of course he would be the first to step forward. Li Tianqing also walked up with him. Something had happened to his wife's family, and the other party was obviously here to cause trouble. Of course, he had to support them well. Li Tianqing moved, and Li Gu'e and the others, who were in charge of guarding in secret, followed behind him. North Pu City. The Lu family. Beipu City. Although the distance wasn't very far, it wasn't very close either. They had more or less heard about it. Among the third-grade cities, North Puff City was considered to be one of the more outstanding ones. In fact, their combined strength was almost on par with that of Northern Medicine City. As for the Lu family, this name sounded familiar, but they couldn't recall it at the moment. You must be the new guard. You're quite capable. Hand over Lu Jianzhong, otherwise, I'll turn today's birthday banquet into a funeral banquet. Lu Tingfei shouted sternly. With Lu Tingfei's strength and influence, these good-for-nothings in front of him were nothing in his eyes. These people could be easily dealt with. There was no way they could pose a threat. Therefore, when Lu Tingfei arrived here, he acted as if he was a natural king, and the people around him all obeyed his orders. If anyone disobeyed, he would directly kill them as a punishment. How dare a family from such a small place stir up trouble in front of the Lu family? Lu Tingfei was furious when he thought of the words of the Qingyu city governor. What did he mean? The Lu family of North Pu City, can't even deal with a family from a small county? Family head Lu, please be more polite. This is Guanxi Town, not your North Pu City. Shen Nanxiao suddenly said in a deep voice. His tone was extremely unfriendly. If it weren't for the fact that the other party wasn't someone to be trifled with, Shen Nanxiao would have already ordered the people in front of him to be captured and beaten up. Even his limbs would be chopped off. However, since the other party said so, Shen Nanxiao had to be serious. You're quite arrogant. Break his legs for me. Lu Tingfei said coldly. Immediately, a person stepped forward and rushed towards Shen Nanxiao. Shen Nanxiao was naturally not afraid. In front of so many people he couldn't retreat. If he retreated, wouldn't he be ridiculed by others? However, Li Tianqing took the lead and stood in front of Shen Nanxiao. Fire Lion Palm. Both of his hands flew up and down. Finally, the power of this palm was formed. Then, it suddenly slammed forward. Boom! The aura around Li Tianqing's body exploded, forming a terrifying pressure. Even the attacker was shocked. Li Tianqing's attack caught him off guard. He only had enough time to raise his Yuan power to block in front of him. Bang! Li Tianqing's current Yuan Li had officially entered the 7th grade of the Yuan Master Realm. It was exactly the same as Li Zongjiu's realm. Li Zongjiu's Turtle Origin Spirit Gathering Pill and the Might of the Sky Blazing Lion King art were the only things that could make such a joke. Perhaps in less than a year, he would be able to reach the Yuan General Realm. Li Tianqing's attack surprised Lu Tingfei a little. The person who Lu Tingfei sent out was directly sent flying back. When he fell to the ground, his entire arm was charred black. This arm was considered to be crippled. Li Tianqing crippled one of his guards with one move. A cold light flashed in Lu Tingfei's eyes. I didn't expect this small Guanxi town to have such an expert. You're not from Guanxi Town, right? Lu Tingfei said coldly to Li Tianqing. Men, close the door. Since you've come to my father-in-law's house to behave atrociously, don't think about leaving in one piece. Li Tianqing said indifferently. The Li family's guards rushed out from all directions. Originally, Li Zongjiu only brought a small team of a dozen people, but now that Li Tianqing came, the scene couldn't be small, and more than 60 people came. There were more than 100 people, and each of them had a strong aura as they stared at the person in front of them. Although the Lu family's guards' aura was not weak, there were too few of them. They were suppressed by the aura of the Li family's guard. The door was slammed shut with a loud bang. His aura soared by 3 points. This trick was also learned from Li Zongjiu. If someone came to make trouble, he would close the door without saying anything. That would be enough to scare them. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.